Hello there, everyone. I'm just going to play a video, but I've been a little bit stupid and I need to do a couple of bits and pieces. But let's play. Apparently my mic's really bad, so we're going to fuck that sound off then, and we're going to actually get on with the show for today. So, should be good. Let's stop sharing and actually get on with the... I was trying to be fancy. It didn't go very well. As per normal, really, to be fair. So, yeah, we're going to be doing a lovely stream today. We've got lots to talk about. But I'm here with two gorgeous, gorgeous men, Mr. Crumplepoint and Magic Bollocks. How are you both doing today, sirs?
I am so gorgeous that I do not show my face. I have covered it permanently with an 8-ball.
Yeah, and I say it's such a beautiful day. It's time to Allah Akbar everything.
Allah Akbar.
Yeah.
Allah Akbar. Sorry, I just thought I'd try and be funny. It doesn't always work. Most of the time it doesn't work.
They're laughing in their heads, common sense. Don't worry.
I'm pretty sure they're not. I'm pretty sure they're not. But, you know, it's good. We've got a lot to talk about today, and I'm going to try and steamroller through some of this. So, how's everybody doing today in general? Because obviously it's been a gorgeous day. So what's everybody been doing?
Well, let CP talk first, because I'm sure it'll be much more exciting than mine.
No, not remotely. I have been doing fuck all today. Did some work type shit, and then I did some chore type shit, and then I got really bad hay fever and sat inside.
So typical Scottish day then. Typical Scottish day.
Yeah, pretty much.
I've got to try and top that. Yeah, nothing quite as spectacularly exciting. Now, I've been doing long overdue chores myself, mainly outdoor painting, which is something I love doing, especially when it's on the side of my old neighbor who I couldn't stand side, who used to refuse to let me get there by parking a fucking great metal garage in the way, which has since been removed by my other neighbor who decided to steal it when she moved. So, yeah, I've been doing the sad, boring old chores that homeowners have to do, and they all pretend that they're all, you know, they enjoy it because they think they're multi-skilled and multi-talented. But I'm honest, I hate housework. I hate manual labor. I hate jobs like that. And if I had the money, I would pay some other sucker to do it for me, but I do not. I have to do it myself, which is very irritating. Yeah.
That's not a good thing. That's not a good thing at all, is it? That's not a good thing. Not a good thing.
I know.
What about you, CSG?
Sorry, my friend?
What about you?
Yes, yourself. Tell us what you've been up to.
I went out and had a chip batty dinner with the missus, and then I brought it all back up again.
Hey, that's sort of like buy one, get one free.
It could be if you try to eat it again, but I'm not a dog.
Hey, you're always saying about, how to get more subscribers, more clicks. Maybe that's the way to do it. Do something that not many other channels are doing. Shock tactics. Common sense guy up to a point. Now watch me eat my own sick.
Yes. This is good for you.
I'll bet it's been done.
Oh, it's been done to
To be
death,
fair, I
CP.
bet it's been done.
But you have to ask yourself, is anybody live streaming at the moment doing that very thing?
Maybe not on
Probably not.
YouTube, but
Probably
on
not.
certain sites, I'm very sure.
Oh, absolutely, on certain sites, yeah. It's that niche. That's what you need, a niche.
I do. I need a leash.
No, a
You're
niche.
correct.
You can eat
No,
your
I know.
leash as well,
I
but...
know what you said. No, I know what you said. I need a leash.
Oh, okay. No, I was just reading the chat there for a moment.
I suppose.
And they were all moaning about the
Yes.
sound, so I thought maybe that's what it was.
Sound.
Yes, they said, sort out your sound. Echo.
Yes, it's because I was trying to play music and it didn't work. I'll have to listen to find out what happened, but I'm guessing it was a reverb of some description.
Anyway.
But we should see. Yes. So, Bangladeshi actress is forced to apologize after suggesting she might be an atheist in a conservative Muslim country. So I don't really need to go through the whole story. Basically, she's an actress. She suggested she may have been or may be an atheist. And Bangladesh decided that they were going to ridicule her. So now she's apologized for becoming or saying that she may have been atheist. What do we think about that?
It's the current Daily Mail, so I wouldn't be surprised if it was all made up anyway. But Bangladesh.
Oh no,
I like the way they're now always putting the word conservative in front of Muslims that actually follow the word of the Quran, because they seem to have got into their head, the mainstream now, that there's two types of Muslims: the religion of peace, the ones that they all love and worship, and then there's these other ones who are the lone wolves and the ones who live in the Far East. That we don't actually have the conservative Muslims over here, and the ones protesting in Birmingham were probably ones on holiday. They weren't actual residents
on holiday. They were on a visa.
Yeah, they were probably just visiting relatives. I thought, something to do, instead of going to Alton Towers and, just touring the countryside now, we'll just say, oh, let's get some of this gay shit out of the schools before we go back home next week.
Yeah, to give it a go, kick it in the nuts.
Yeah. I knew that it was Muslim protesters before the news told me it was Muslim protesters, because they hadn't been fucking tear gassed or ridiculed or hit by water cannon or had their kids taken off.
Ridiculed.
Yeah.
Because if a normal people had said, "Hey, look,"
ridiculed, maybe just far right.
Yeah, exactly. If normal people had said, "Hey, look, we don't want this," because you know how people are pissed off with sex education of any kind. So, like,
pretty much
with their kids, particularly given that in the public school sector, it's a fucking absolute joke anyway. Like, I like, they do crazy shit. Like, you're in a sex education class, they're just giving you like basic instructions on how. It's like half biology and half how to basic. It's just so cringy, and it's like, you can't be showing that to fucking 5-year-olds. I remember it was bad enough when I got it when I was like 13, but yeah.
To be fair,
anyway, people are pissed off about that, and then so you've got this. The thing is, like, I don't see anything directly wrong with the thing of, hey, look, kids, it's quite rare, but this does happen. If somebody has two dads, leave them the fuck alone. But that's as long as that should take. Like, you don't need a whole curriculum on it. So then people naturally become quite suspicious. Like, why does this need to be a whole class? And
yeah, to be fair, it's not really a whole class. I mean, obviously, we're talking about the primary school issue up in Birmingham and whatnot. And it's going around the country now. But as far as I'm aware, from what I've been able to find out and doing my own type of little research and whatnot, it seems to be one sort of class like you had in year 6, where you're just taught the simple things about it. And in some cases, it goes to year 3, where they're basically told, you have a mummy and daddy, but this person has a mummy and a mummy, or a daddy and a daddy. It doesn't really go into too much depth. It's just to make awareness that some people are different.
Yeah,
but that's what I've been able to find out, and maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But if that's what it is, like you said, I'm quite happy to be able to support that, because people's individuality is worth celebrating, regardless if we believe in it or agree with it.
Well, the point is, though, that by making it a part of the school curriculum, you're kind of like, oh, hang on, this is now going to become some kind of alt-life weirdo promotion scheme.
Mm.
And particularly, but anyway, so moving back to what you were talking about before about the conservative thing, I had heard that like that's kind of something that went out of fashion and then came back into fashion, presumably because it's politically useful, of using the word conservative in regards to religious people who are keeping their doctrine very dogmatic. That's quite an old term. Like that was kind of, I don't know, people my parents' age would say that. But then obviously you've got like social conservative and you've got a fiscal conservative, and those two things are completely independent of one another. They don't have to be, but usually they are. And I always find it funny when they do this in the case of the Muslims, conservative Muslims, because it's like, well, no, the thing is they want a theocracy. Like, there's nothing conservative about a theocracy. It's the biggest of big government that you can possibly get. So, but they know it's a dog whistle, and they know that conservative means bad as far as print is concerned. So they go, okay, this is bad, put the word conservative in front of it, and we can loosely explain ourselves so it'll stick better.
I mean, the main reason why I picked the story to begin with is because I found it very, very interesting, simply because people are always saying that in general, Muslims or people from Islam and whatnot don't always want to change anything that's going on in their countries. They don't want to change anything. So if they're so secular and they're so understanding of other religions, why is it that when they're in their own countries, when they're completely and utterly in control in general, why is it that nobody's allowed to be any different to what they tell them they need to be? It was a point for me for the story to point out to everyone that it's a case of they are literally telling this lady that was suggesting, wasn't saying she was, but was telling her, you cannot be an atheist. You have to be a Muslim. Otherwise, you are not able to work. You are not able to do this or whatever. And I thought that was a very interesting coincidence of the free speech issues that we have in our own countries. And I was wondering if you guys thought that there may be a correlation between the two, as in somebody may be hiding behind it.
It's an interesting theory, but I mean, in terms of if you want to work for the mainstream in this country, you certainly have to have certain beliefs now, don't you? You would certainly be ostracized quite quickly if you displayed any sort of sympathy for the slight right-leaning, maybe what was once called the center, which is now called far right. If you if you had an opinion that maybe, well, you know, maybe Tommy Robson has a point on this issue, or maybe, you know, leaving the EU actually would benefit the country, things like that, you're not allowed to have them. So it's almost like a kind of religious cult now, if you actually want to be part of the establishment. And in these sort of you know, countries like Bangladesh and Pakistan and other slightly less Muslim domineering countries like, say, Malaysia, I mean, it's still there. So, you know, there is an expectance of how you're supposed to be in society, I suppose.
Well, my stance on this policy has been clear for a number of years now, since the last election, which is round up all the fat blue-haired feminists, put them into a Hercules gunship, fly the Hercules gunship over these Muslim countries, and dump the feminists in these places and let them clean those countries up where women are actually oppressed. Or they can be assimilated by the Borg, one of the two. Either way, we're rid of them, and we give them a chance at actually growing some character.
You see, now I can see a fundamental flaw in your plan there, CP.
It will take work on their part.
Oh no, it's how the fuck is that helicopter ever going to take off with all them fat blue-haired feminists in it?
Damn, this is why central planning is always a disaster.
Exactly. You know, that's why I think, you know, Heil Hitler had the right idea with the trains.
Well, yeah, I suppose so. Happy birthday to Hitler.
We had to bring that up at some point.
Listen to this guy implying the Middle East have trains. Ha 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 ha.
Well, I've just given another argument that, you know, maybe they need to be invaded again and a new empire needs to be created. Maybe this time we can actually finish the job and give them full infrastructure.
Okay. Yeah, we could do that.
Anyway, as always on your streams, I'm being intentionally hyperbolic and using lots of black comedy, but like legit, Where are
You
the
can't use that
feminists?
word. You can't use that word. You can't use black.
Oh, I meant Negro comedy. Sorry.
There you go.
Where are the
Person of
feminists?
colour comedy. Oh, that's what you meant.
Where are the feminists when this shit's happening? It's like, oh, we're going to stone you to death for expressing a mildly non-devout opinion. And it's like, you know, tumbleweed, but it's just like if I sit on a train and help a woman with her bag, it's like, look at this toxic masculinity person.
Yeah. Or if you're in Bangladesh, you could be set on fire for claiming that you have sexual harassment against you. That's what we could be having at this moment in time. Books for justice for teen girl set on fire after sexual harassment claims. 18-year-old, I'm not going to be able to pronounce her name properly, but Rafi's death has caused public outrage and sparked protests in Bangladesh. Not bad, pretty girl, to be fair. Pretty girl, to be fair. So protesters in Bangladesh and human rights groups, do they have those in the Middle East? Sorry, carrying on. Are calling for justice for a teenage girl burned alive after refusing to withdraw sexual harassment and assault claims against the head teacher. So I don't think that we really need to go any further into the details of the story. If anybody wants to read the story, it is in a link down below so people can read at their own ideas and whatnot. But I don't think that we need to go any further. Yeah, head teacher, sexual harassment, set on fire for sexual harassment. What do we think about that then, guys?
Burnley is getting out of control.
Yeah.
Ha, ha, ha. The puntasticness of that was amazing.
Yeah.
No, but legit, like, I'm glad that you brought this up and everybody should go and check it out and sign any petitions or whatever. But like you said, what else is there to be said about it?
Yeah, I was sort of trying to find some kind of humorous spin on it myself, but you can't really, because it's like so out there that. But then that's the kind of thing that's always happened in the Middle East. It's just we now hear about it, and it's kind of funny that there is no kind of sort of worry from our establishment that could start to become the norm as their percentages continue to grow.
Sure.
Because what percentage are they now? Is it about 12% or something like that?
Of what? Of what you mean national population?
Yeah.
No, not even that high. I believe there's something around about 8 or 9.
Ah, okay. Because my understanding is once they get to about 20 to 25%, that's when shit really starts to get problematic, shall we say, in honor of those blue-haired feminists who've just been dumped over the Middle East.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's the bit that worries me, you see, because that all sounds shocking and really, really troubling to us, but to them, that's just Tuesday, isn't it? That's just another day of the week.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, the main reason why I brought this story up was simply because we have middle-class people protesting about climate change. Now, whether you agree, disagree, or whatever, but they are protesting climate change and everything else like that, where there are literally people dying in the Middle East that do not have the equivalent of proper human rights. Would it not be a good idea to protest them rather than people that are, or a country that is among the lowest in carbon emissions to fucking begin with? Wouldn't it be good protesting something that's actually worthwhile in protesting? And I'm not saying that global warming isn't a worthwhile cause, but maybe do it in countries like China if you're going to actually protest global warming, one of the biggest contributors, if not the biggest contributors to carbon gas emissions, if you believe in that type of stuff, in the world. Surely it's a good idea to protest things that actually fucking matter, not just virtue signal. And the reason why I brought that up is because feminists, great at trying to turn the air conditioning down because it's too cold, but actually having somebody burnt alive, nobody makes a video about it anywhere. Nobody says anything because brown people. Apparently they're protected for some fucking reason.
The interesting thing there, Common Sense, is do you think all these weirdos, because did you see them on the news? The one fella, well, the one woman who glued herself to the, I don't know what it was. It looked like a phone box to me, but obviously they don't exist anymore. So she glued herself to something. And then that bloke who looked like he was in his 50s and claimed he was doing this for his nephews and nieces. Unsurprisingly, he didn't have any children of his own. I expect with a testosterone level that low, he doesn't produce any sperm. But do you think this is just the Brexit, what they call them, the protesters? Now they've got a 6 months break. They've now had to think of something else to do in the meantime to fill up their time, because isn't it nice to be that well off that you either don't have to work, that you can just spend all your time doing this? Because, you know, where are the normal, everyday, ordinary people? You said, what do you think of climate change? I don't fucking know. I'm too busy.
Well, it's not a protest. It's a demonstration. Protest is where you don't have permission for a start. Like, that's the point. That's why it's called a protest. You're protesting against the establishment because you're not allowed to be doing it. So it's not a protest, it's a demonstration, because they have permission, and in fact the government and the media and most of the population seem to be on their side. So it really is like, it's hardly a brave stance, is it? It's like, yeah, anyway. And then the other thing is it's all the same people. Like you say, yes, it's all the same people. It's a form of recreation for them, because what's happened is first it was TV, then it was reality TV, and now it's politics is just the thing that people do now. And so they don't fucking know why they're there. They could just feel good about themselves. There's, you know, there's street food, there's a carnival atmosphere, you know, that's why they're there. And
so literally part of their protest demonstration, whatever nomenclature you want to use, was literally them having almost a festival in the middle of London. They were literally dancing and drinking cider. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm with you guys. If you want to protest, if you want to demonstrate, then fine, go and do it. You have the right to go and do that. But why would you go to an electric train, one of the lowest carbon emissions in the whole of London, and stop it from running? Why would you go to public transport and stop it from running? All that does is force people to use their cars and increase carbon emissions. All you've done while you've been protesting is raise the level of carbon emissions that you're trying to suggest and say that you want them to stop.
But you're making making the mistake there, Common Sense. Sorry, CB, that you're assuming that they're doing this for the right reasons, rather than just because it's trendy and cool and they like to be able to go on Instagram later on showing pictures of themselves saying, look how virtuous I am. It really is got to the point the middle or upper middles are so bored, have so little purpose in life, that this is what they've been reduced to. Spending months and months outside Westminster saying, Brexit, racist, stop Brexit. And now that Brexit's on hold, they get to say, oh, the planet's dying. Like it's been dying for 40 years, apparently, and we're supposed to have no rainforest now or no ozone layer. Do you remember the ozone layer? We used to talk about that in the 90s, but now we don't talk about it because it turned out to be bullshit. Then it used to be called... we call it climate change now because it used to be global warming, but the world didn't warm up, so we had to change it to something else. You know, it's fuck's sake. You know, just if you are middle class rich, fuck off to Spain and stay there. Okay.
Well, this is the thing, right? That you've kind of made the point I was going to make, which is this protest isn't about climate change. It's not about the left versus the right. It's not about race. It's not about any of these things. It's about the fact that Glastonbury isn't on this year, and all the fuck need something to do.
I hadn't thought of that. That's a very good point.
Well, this happened last year as well, and I don't think there's Glastonbury next year. Is it? What is it? 5 years or something? It's maybe not as long as that to let the field.
I think it's a 2-year break. I think
right. Okay. So next year this won't happen.
That money for that length of time. He just wants the field to heal.
Yeah, exactly. So next year when Glastonbury's back on, this will not happen. And if it does happen, it'll be like, you know, the normal number of people, like 6 trade unionists and a couple of students. Like that'll be it. But because Glastonbury isn't on, all the upper middle class fuckwits with their stupid knitted scarves and salaries that are into the triple figures, no, 3 zeros on the end of them. That's what I meant to say. Triple figure salary would be fucking shite. Yeah, so they're just turning up for something to do, and it's a party to them. And I'm glad they're causing all this disruption, right? Because what it does is it turns the general public against them. Turns even the people that would ordinarily be on their side against them. So I want them to keep doing that, so that they can do us a favor by showing people the vacuous, empty-headed retards that they are. The fact that they don't actually care about anybody or anything. They don't know what an environment is, and we can be rid of them.
Do you know what one of the biggest problems we have is? I was talking to somebody at work who's a nice chap, but a little bit what I would call too optimistic about the world. And we were talking about, I don't know, we got into the subject about Trump pulling out of the Paris Climate Agreement, and he was saying, "Oh, it's absolutely terrible. You know, you shouldn't be doing this. You've got to think about the future and the environment." And I said, "Have you actually read the Paris Climate Agreement?" No, but I hear it's about reducing CO2 emissions. I said, "What, CO2 emissions in the same shit they were pushing 15 years ago when they set the current tax bans for cars, and now they've decided that because everybody's gone to diesels, that actually no, carbon dioxide is fine. It's monoxide that's the problem. So we now have to whop all the taxes up." But the main thing I said was, you do realize that China and various other Middle Eastern countries have massive unfair advantages with the Paris Climate Agreement, which is they have to meet their targets something like, was it 5 to 10 years later than the West, which basically means.
And places like India, sorry, just to quickly...
Yeah, and India, yeah.
Caveat, places like India don't even have to fucking worry about it because they're classified as a, what did they call it? A growing industrial economy. So they need to have that time to be able to industrialize their population.
That's
so
right, yeah. So as I said to him, it would put Western countries at a massive economic disadvantage. Because, you know, if you can go to a country where you've got no restrictions on how much pollution you can create, then send all your factories over there and you'll save a fortune. And he didn't, he's you know, it was almost, you know, when you finally red pill somebody and you can see the click in their eyes. It was sort of like one eye went but the other one didn't. It was like he was, you know, he was fighting himself to say like no. It was almost like I was trying to explain to him that stop watching Channel 4, stop assuming that Trump's going to be impeached by the Mueller report and all this shit. Just accept that the Paris Climate Agreement is not a good deal for us. It never was. And he's pulled out because he wants to put the best interests of America first, you know, something politicians over here used to do. And, you know, it's sort of went in, it sort of didn't, because you know what people are like when they have perceived biases. But, you know, I came very close to red pilling somebody, very, very close. I normally don't bother trying. It's not my thing to change minds, and because I do work with a lot of fucking morons. But it's amazing how ill-informed people are. They will just see something on the news, and that's it. It's a foregone conclusion. If BBC says that climate change is happening, it must be true. Instead of thinking, is this true, or are they pushing an agenda for some political purpose? Nope.
Well, the way that the protesters seem to be doing it, I won't stay on this for too much longer, but the way that the protesters seem to be doing it is nothing to do with the fact of they actually care about the climate. It's nothing to do, because if they did care about the climate, they wouldn't be worried about the carbon emissions coming from the UK. They'd be more worried, as we've all said before, about the Middle East and China specifically. Or they'd be more worried about all this shit that's in the fucking ocean. And they'd be trying to do shit to actually get rid of that, rather than protesting all of the climate change. If you're really environmentalists, as climate change people are supposed to be, then why aren't you moaning about all of the shit that's in the ocean?
Better yet, why not,
aren't you protesting that?
Why not, instead of going and spending thousands and thousands of your money, wasting it on transport, putting tons of said completely fucking harmless gases into the atmosphere, all this shit, emissions. It's like, well, how many emissions did you take to get everybody to London? How many emissions did all your propane tanks for your street food and everything cause? Why didn't you all go to the beach and pick up some litter? This is what always fucking happens, though. It's just like it's always NIMBYism, and it's never about what they're actually supposedly believing. It's always about what they hate, and that's all that they can do.
Whatever gets in the most attention.
Sorry, but that's the reason why they are politicizing their point of view and why they're trying to push an agenda. That's the reason why they went on Sky News and were playing the moral high card by saying, I want my children to live in a place where they can have food.
Yeah, these are the people that say don't have children, by the way.
2 to 3 years' time, we won't have food in the United Kingdom. I want to make sure my children have food. It's just like, really? You really think food's going to go in 2 to 3 years' time? Even if you used AOC's fucking 12 years and the world's going to blow up, we will still have food up to the 12 years. I guarantee it.
Yeah. I mean, I do like, a Crumble Point's point there, which is that it's the endless hypocrisy of it, which is, they could do something really worthwhile. I mean, lots of people do loads of things, even if it's like small charitable things, but they don't talk about it because to them, they just do it because they're good people. It's always the people who shout loudly about how virtuous they are the real fucking fake arseholes.
And and this group of people, because they're the same, it's all the same people and it's all the same stupid issues that they circle jerk on, right? They go, their argument to what we've said would be, oh yeah, but we don't live in China, we live in Britain and we need to sort out Britain. So then you go, well, how about when I go on about globalization destroying jobs and our culture, you say, oh, but I'm a global citizen, but now you're a Brit. Like, how does that work? And why is it that you're going on about like, oh, my children? It's like you're the same people who say, oh, white people shouldn't breed. So you obviously don't give a shit about your children because you want them aborted, at the age of 7. So fucking, it's laughable, and people are starting, thankfully, to see through it a bit more. But it's a long ways to go. They're slow on the uptake.
Yeah, they do actually want them to have kids. They just want them to have brown babies, don't they?
Yeah, they want them to be purchased from places in Africa, like Angelina Jolie did.
Yeah, and don't forget Charlie Theron, and don't forget Lad. She's available.
Oh yes, lovely, lovely. By the way, speaking of hypocrisy, lots of people always talk about how gun bans and how the UK doesn't have any gun-related incidences or deaths. 6-year-old boy injured after gunshots. So, interesting. So, shots fired at a house in Wolverhampton. A man and a teenager are arrested after shots were fired at a house in Wolverhampton on Good Friday, injuring a 6-year-old boy. I mean, I'm sad for the boy, but the main point is on this video, this live stream in general, is to point out the fact that just because you ban something doesn't mean criminals will accept that it's banned.
Right, I mean, CSG, hang on, you've made a grave error, right? Let me explain it to you. Crime is against the law, okay? So there can't be guns in the country, and there can't be gun crime in the country because it's a crime, and crime is against the law. Do you see?
I do see. So guns are against the law, and criminals break the law, so they shouldn't have any guns because they'd be breaking the law.
Yeah, but then what we do is we make crime against the law so that the criminals can't break the law.
So what you're saying is if we legalize the guns, then it won't be it won't be a crime anymore.
No, you get all the criminals, you make their crimes against the law, and then when the next generation of criminals come along, you elect them to the House of Commons. What are you not getting about this?
Oh, I get it. Pedophilia.
Everything, all of it. If it's a crime, I want an MP.
Pretty much, yes. Pretty much.
Maybe that's what they should start doing. That would be much more honest of them. It's like, would the right honourable member for armed robbery please make his statement? Thank you, right honourable member of pedophilia. As the right honourable member for bombing civilians just said, that would be much better because it's not like they represent actual constituencies. So let's do it that way.
No, that's very true. They don't represent any constituencies anymore. They're turned into autocrats. But besides the point, I mean, the main reason why I brought this story up was literally because people always are saying, oh, gun bans are amazing. And obviously, especially with everything that's going on in America at the minute with the gun rights and issues in the Second Amendment and whatnot. I just wanted to point out that banning something doesn't stop criminals from going to kill people. Even in Australia, just because the gun buyback happened doesn't mean people weren't massacred. They still were. But, I feel better because the law says that you can't have one. Yeah, all you do is take away the guns away from people that can defend you. You wouldn't take it away from the police, so why would you take it away from yourself?
again, it's that what we were talking about before, virtue signaling, or just showing the world how virtuous you are because you apparently know best. Take all the guns away and suddenly all the world's problems will stop. But because I'm sure MC did a vid on that once where basically he talked about guns, and he had a load of people leaving messages saying that guns cause violence, death, blah blah blah, and ban them all. So I just left a message saying, yeah, ban all the guns in the world and all the world's problems will end. Anyone got a knife?
Well, I would have just said, anybody got a truck? Anybody got a plane?
Well, yeah, no, you've got a good point, right? Because, like you say, trucks, planes, and knives, and people going, oh, but you can't kill as many people with a knife as you can with a gun. It's like there have been several incidents on an almost monthly basis in China where literally into the hundreds of people get stabbed at once by terrorists because they can't get hold of bombs or guns because there's such a surveillance state and they're all dirt poor, but they can get kitchen knives and they can organize quickly, and there's quite a lot of them. So you get people running supermarkets and murdering dozens of people. Same numbers as you would get in America at a shooting.
Yeah.
And in fact, mostly more. I mean, the average is around 10 to 12 people that get stabbed in China when these incidents happens, and that's the low ball of it as well.
Yeah, I bet you could kill a lot of people if you were in the middle of a crowd, say at Glastonbury, not giving anybody any tips for next year. But if you were, say, right in the middle of a crowd and you pulled out a machete and just started slicing people, because you're assuming, of course, that most of those, well, pretty much all those people in that crowd won't be armed. So this whole, you won't kill as many people with a knife. If you're right surrounded by people and you have an object that you could kill with and they can't move, yes, you could kill a hell of a lot of people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and then with the... Sorry, go ahead, CSG.
No, all I was going to say was, as far as I remember, the actual statistic in America in itself that actually killed the most people, not alcohol, not cars, not including them, but they are the ones that actually do kill the most. But if we're talking about what we consider weapons, then it's hands and feet. Literally beating people, it kills more people than guns do in America. But yeah, that doesn't matter. Ban the guns because guns are bad, apparently. Not the people using them, but the guns are. And the object is bad.
Is that just because the Americans are such poor shots that after they've, emptied their magazines, they've got nothing left but to go over and beat the person they wanted to shoot?
No, they're really good at friendly fire.
Yeah, that's only towards us.
Yes.
See the American gun thing as well, though, right? If when they trot out this figure, oh, look how many people. It's like, okay, but compared to other causes of death, it's not that high. And also, what they always inevitably do is they include suicides by gun, which is completely disingenuous. They include shootings by criminals who shouldn't have guns, which defeats the purpose of the gun control, surely, because the criminal couldn't legally acquire the gun anyway. They include places like Chicago and New York where you basically can't get hold of the gun.
Don't you be using your common sense on me. Don't you be using your common sense on me, Mr. Crumplepoint.
I'm trying to Jedi mind trick you into...
Yeah, he'll never be a member of the Labour Party now, will he?
I never would want to be.
But no, you get what I mean. Like, it's a low number anyway, compared to, say, knives and, like you said, beatings. So it's a lower number anyway. And then part of that is also because the mass shootings don't get started if the mass shooter gets shot by somebody first, which happens a lot. So
Sorry,
it can't go down as...
I have to quickly just jump in because I just find it very funny. Mass shootings would get stopped if police officers actually went into schools to actually shoot the perpetrator rather than saying, fuck that, I'm not doing it.
Well, I would have thought he would have been quite intimidated anyway with the many different colors of the police officers' uniform these days. Because even though, you could be someone who's a, psychopathic murderer, you've still got to take into account that he might have homosexual tendencies. So the police have to be, sympathetic at all times. So, maybe showing them a rainbow flag might talk them down. Or maybe just saying about how you understand, trans rights and start lecturing them about, which pronoun would you like to be referred to, sir? You never know. A little bit of far left rhetoric might solve the problem.
It might do. It might do. It might solve the problem.
Of course, it might make him,
Might.
even angrier and kill even more people.
To be fair, certain people just need some love, don't they? That's all they really need. All they need is love, love, love.
Yeah, remind me again how the man who wrote that song ended up.
I don't know. How did he end up, Mr. Bollocks?
I believe that he signed an autograph and then fell to the floor.
Oh dear, that's not good.
Yeah,
Not good at all.
It's terrible, isn't it?
It is. It's not great, mate. It's not great. It's not gravy. It's not gravy.
Yeah. All you need is love, a pen, and a bullet wound.
Oh dear. Though I suppose I better go back towards China and talk more about religion, because I do find this very, very interesting overall, that you have one set of authoritarian ideologues, as in Islam and Muslims in general at this point in the Middle East, telling people that they can't be atheists. And now you have atheists in China shutting church down, saying that they can't have a form of religion.
That is a dirty lie.
Really interesting.
That is a dirty lie. They're allowed to have a religion so long as the cross is not in the church and it's a picture of Xi Jinping.
So forming one religion for another religion.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Well, that's how you have to look at communism, really. It is just another, it's a cult kind of religion ideology, because you only have to look at the RSGWs now, which is in the same vein as a religious fanatic. You can give them logic and reason and they won't believe it. So, I mean, don't forget, the term racism actually is a communistic terminology. It came from, I believe, was it the 20s or 30s, when the communistic Russians were trying to convert and I'm pretty certain they were Christian sects that were in like Ukraine, to convert to communism. And if they refused, they would be accused of being racist.
Yeah, and then what they did was once they'd joined up, so if you were a Christian communist as opposed to having renounced your faith, all they were doing was they were working out who to round up and put in the gulags as well. So that was you basically had to submit completely to communism. They would give you sort of like the option, but like as Crumple Point said, it was just a way of figuring out who they were going to lock up.
Yeah. To be fair, it's probably the same way in this. I mean, I love the subheading on this, which is China isn't officially an atheist state, but obviously caveated, but with freedom of religion guaranteed in the constitution. So you're officially an atheist state, but you have freedom of religion and it's guaranteed in the constitution, but China is now shutting churches down.
Where's this article from? They don't have religion guaranteed in the constitution anywhere.
I have no idea. I'm just going by what Tom Cheshire says, which is the Asian correspondent for Sky.
No, it's absolutely false. It's absolutely false. They don't have freedom of religion guaranteed in the constitution. The constitution forbids freedom of religion.
I would have guessed that, especially after the person that claimed to be the second coming of Jesus Christ and decided to cyanide everybody. I imagine that would have been. But the thing that I really wanted to talk about, the actual idea, whether it's in the constitution or not, is the actual state or people that are helping the state or taking, should we say, official orders from the state are actually going and closing down these churches and things like that, and actually forcing people not to believe in what they want to believe. Now, most people know that I'm definitely not a Christian. In fact, I think all religion's fucking stupid. But if people want to believe in something, I think they have the right to do that. And I don't think the state should tell people what they should and shouldn't believe in. And the reason why I mostly picked this story is because if it can happen there under an authoritarian state, and we believe that our state is going that way, how long until it happens to us? For whatever we believe in, for having the wrong beliefs.
Well, like the interesting thing about why is the reason it'll go exactly like what you're saying is that it'll come over here and quickly is it's not religion, it's why, because every religion and stuff is subject to this, but like any fraternal groups are also banned. You can only be a member of the Communist Party. That's all you're allowed.
True.
So
Yes.
why is all this? Well, it's because the problem is, if you're a member of the Communist Party trying to bring down the Communist Party, but you're also a Christian, you have a shared experience with somebody who you don't necessarily know, which means you can both coordinate against the state without knowing each other in the same way, because you're both working from, say, the Bible, and that has a sort of doctrine to it. Same with the Quran and all that sort of stuff. But they banned Tai Chi for the same reason, because like, wait, if people go to Tai Chi clubs and having discussions about things and have this kind of brotherhood that might be above the Communist Party, it can all be used to erode our power. So that's why they ban it. And so the reason they'll bring it over here, you can see them doing it with things like, I know it sounds trivial, but things like memes, because you and me can have a conversation where we are taking the piss out of the law or the government or SJWs without them realizing it through memes, because they don't understand the reference. And that's really disruptive to them. So that's why they want to ban that, and they'll not stop there.
Are you suggesting that memes is sort of like the modern equivalent of rhyming slang to get around, the police by using terminology that they don't understand?
That's actually a brilliant way of putting it. That is exactly what it is.
Mm.
And that's exactly why the communists don't allow religion. They don't give a shit what you believe. They give a shit about the fact you can use your beliefs to subvert communism.
Yeah, I mean, I've said this many a times, where I think that religion in itself is now being changed into the idea of political persuasion. I think people are now turning into politics as their form of religious release. It doesn't mean that I think that politics is a religion. I think people are turning it into a religion. I think people should understand the difference in that. It's just that if they can do that for political doctrine, there we go. I can speak, honest. If they can do that for political doctrine anywhere else in the world, and then our country itself, which is now still taking orders from the EU with Article 11, Article 13, and Article 7 that are all coming through, then when people tell me that that's not going to happen, people are not going to be censored on what they can and cannot say for their own ideology and their own ideas, I say bullshit. The EU is literally putting legislation through. You can no longer watch porn in a particular way anymore because you have to be a certain age or certain blah, blah, blah. The restrictions are now being put into place from today. You've also got people over in America that are literally saying from CBS and the media that you need to go out and punch a Nazi. So this is all coming down to the same ideology. If you disagree with me and my beliefs, I can either stop you physically by censoring you, or I can use the government to censor you. And I think that's absolutely fucking amazing that nobody is really trying to put up a fight against it. I'm not saying I am, for fuck's sake. I'm not on my own, but I'm here in my bloody room just fucking talking to you guys. But nobody in the mass media is coming out and actually going against it. Nobody in Parliament is saying that this is all wrong or this is all bad. In fact, people are actually voting for these legislations to come through. And we're going to turn into places like China, where everything apart from the other party or the Conservative Party and have a two-party system is going to take over us. I just don't see how people don't see how that's going to happen and why nobody is going against it. I really don't.
No, we've talked about this before. Common sense, the great enlightening, when you suddenly, like I said, both the clicks appear in the eye and the red pill kicks in and you realize suddenly what's going on, and you kind of start to have a funny sort of admiration for the ignorant, because they live in just complete denial and ignorance of what's going on, and they seem to be quite happy about it. Those people who don't really think of anything, they just have their little lives, they get on with what they do, and they might watch the news and believe everything they see, and Trump's a racist and a fascist, and that Brexit will turn us all into goose steppers. It's
good old Mr. Lammy.
It's because I think that, I don't know if it's just because of the Carlin theory about how dumb most people really are, or if it's just because I think the thing is most people are capable of critical thinking. I think most people are afraid of it.
Yes,
They're afraid of they're afraid of the conclusions they'll come to, especially if you've if you've invested in an ideology. I think this is part of the reason, and I hate bringing him up again and again and again, but my old man, I swear that he has sold his soul to the ideology of socialism, that he cannot possibly ever admit that it's all a crock of shit and that his beloved Labour Party is selling us down the river. He could never do it. It would destroy him as a person. I suppose it's the same as somebody who's been, say, a hardline Christian all life. Say my grandfather, who's coming 90 and is definitely near the end of his life now. For him to suddenly, somebody been able to prove to him right now, after a whole lifetime of dedicated belief in God and in Christ and all that, somebody to put something in front of him saying, look, proof there is no God. I think at that point in your life, you could not, even with hard evidence, no doubt at all, you wouldn't buy it. You still say no. And that's the thing with human beings. And this is why I have always been somebody who has argued against the whole idea of communism and collectivism, is that we are tribal animals, yes, but you will never have a global tribe. It doesn't work that way. Human beings are not designed to be a collective. We are all individuals. Every single one of us is unique, one-off, who will never be one like you again, similar, but never exactly like you. We can work as a team, but we can't work as a massive collective. It goes against everything in our nature. And the only people yes, we are not the Borg. The only people who want us to be like that are the globalists, the people, the 1%, whatever you want to call them. They just want us to be worker ants, effectively. Do as you're told and shut the fuck up. But
does that mean they're all queens?
Yes. We worked it out. The establishment are a load of gays. No wonder they're so angry.
See, you used the word tribal, though, and this is an interesting thing that I see with people. People who are against collectivism don't actually realize how good a tool it is, and people who are for collectivism just make the blunder. And they, so the people for collectivism, for instance, will say, "Oh, but human beings are tribal anyway," and it's very interesting they use these words because they don't use a word like uniform or the Borg or whatever. They say tribal, and the thing is that a tribe can only work if it is a collection of individuals. Like, that's the whole point in a tribe, and everybody has a different job. Everybody has a different rank. Well, there are different ranks. Not everybody has it, but there are ranks in a tribe. There are different specializations, and there are different members of the tribe who have different jobs. That's how a tribe works. So when a collectivist tries to use a tribe as, oh, it's just our natural default, it's like, well, yeah, it is, and it's the opposite of what a communist is. It's a voluntary team of individuals, which is the opposite of a collective. And and nobody notices that, and the people who are against the collectivists, I've never seen them call them out on it. They just argue against it straight away rather than saying, well, actually, it's funny you use that.
And the whole idea of the tribe is that if it was, as they believe it, the collective, then why is always in our history there been multiple tribes? If their theory was correct, we would all just created a huge commune where everybody was considered equal. But as Crumple just quite rightly said, even in the tribe, everyone's individual because you all have individual jobs, individual skills, individual abilities. So, this whole idea, I mean, it's a beautiful concept that, all men are equal. And that, well, of course not. I mean, if all men were equal, we'd be fucking robots. And even robots are never what's called equal. There's always differences between them. They might be programmed the same, but there'll always be some manufacturing fault or some code that, doesn't fucking work. But the point being is that you can't have a collective in a species that is individual.
No, I completely agree with both of your points. It makes makes complete and utter sense that you have groups of individuals that form a group to be able to benefit the actual whole of society in general. That's what we call individualism. I'm great at doing something, you're good at doing something, we put our skills together and we can make something together to make ourselves better overall. Where, as you quite rightly have all said, communism in itself is the idea of making everybody equal. That doesn't mean celebrating the individuals. That means making sure that if I'm a shit doctor, I'm still going to be a doctor because we need a doctor. That's all that communism is just putting things into place where people are forced to do stuff that they don't want to do. Same as queuing up for food. I've never understood how people would want to do that, to queue up for food.
I think you need to add a little caveat in there, which is they want to make everybody under them equal.
Yes.
That's the point. And then they always want to be middle to upper, because you never see somebody, unless they're being completely disingenuous, say, oh yes, I want full communism and I want to be one of the proles. They always want to be involved in some way in the administration or the distribution or the higher up functioning of the collective. They never want to go, oh yeah, I want to be equal, everybody to be equal, and I want to be at the bottom and somebody else to be above me. Like they don't do that because they know fine well that it's a power trip. But the other thing is that Magic Bollocks said about tribes and other tribes. That's where they show their true colors, because they know that Magic Bollocks is correct. They know that communism is a tribe. What they want is their tribe to be supreme over all the other tribes. They don't want everybody to be in their tribe. They don't want their tribe to be internally equal, and they don't want to get rid of tribes. They want to be, the fucking Dothraki from Game of Thrones. They want to be the head honcho and the most brutal of the tribes. And they might not even know that, but it's built into their doctrine. And that's how you can see it in their frothing mouths.
You can see that on Twitter when you have these people that go out, communism has never been tried right. And then you ask them, well, why hasn't it been tried right? Oh, well, I would be able to make it work. It hasn't been done to the way that I would do it. Jordan Peterson is completely and utterly correct on that, and so are you. It is a power trip, and it's pure and simple narcissism to say a system that wouldn't work, I could get it to work. I am the best that I could be. I could do better than Stalin. I could do better than all the rest of them because somehow I'm better than all of them because I know something different to what you do. It's exactly as both of you said. It is a power trip for that individual to think that they can control the collective mind that would be with them at all times. Just amazing.
Well, also their idea of communism seems to be completely at odds against what Marx originally envisaged anyway, which was they assume a hierarchy, which is they'll be in charge of the people who will all be equal. But the whole idea is there is no hierarchy. The workers control the means of production so that everything gets done. But you don't need money. Apparently, you don't need a government because the workers will just go out to work, make everything, and somehow that will work. Even though again, it goes completely against human nature because we have always had hierarchies.
You're kind of right, and you're also giving them too much credit at the same time because it's a little bit more retarded than that, and it's always like that with communists. However retarded you think it is, it's always a little bit more retarded. Yeah. So Marx didn't want to get rid of hierarchies. Marx wanted the hierarchy to be upside down. So if you imagine the hierarchy like a pyramid, he wants the hierarchy to be upside down. So all the poor people, the proles, are at the top of the hierarchy. So the majority are at the top of the triangle. And then the bourgeois and the super powerful go to the bottom. And obviously that is ludicrous, impossible, makes no fucking sense, and then it would collapse in on itself and just be flat. And that's what always happens. What always happens after it's gone flat? A normal hierarchy with a pyramid shape appears within it. So yes.
What happens to the bourgeoisie when they're at the bottom, though? They just become the proletariat.
Well, no, because they're class enemies. So they're not, for all intents and purposes, they're not human. They're to be eradicated as a class.
Right. So basically all the upper middle class, the intellectuals, university professors at the moment who advocate for communism will be the first ones to be shot.
Again,
during the revolution,
correct.
I think we need to put a little bit of a caveat in on this. That there's two sections of what most people would have as their ideologies, especially from when talking to ANCAPs and communists and socialists. Most of them at the beginning, when they formed their idea of a revolution, how they would take charge, would form the pyramid that Crumple Point suggests to get rid of the bad bourgeoisie, to get rid of the bad oligarchs. But then after everything's set up, they need to form governments and hierarchies again. So then they put that own level of bourgeoisie in there. The pyramid switches on one form to be able to get to the revolution. And then when they want to lead, it switches back again. So you are correct, but you're also wrong, because it depends on what time that you're going to talk to them on their ideology, because they want to lead. So they want that level of bourgeoisie or oligarchs back in power again. Because after all, there has to be somebody controlling it.
Yeah, it's important to note that this is the reason there's so many branches of Marxism, is because Marx never left instructions for post-revolution. He left instructions for the revolution, as did Stalin, Lenin, Trotsky. They don't have plans for after the revolution. Like the bit between the revolution and utopia, there's not a roadmap for that, and they know that there isn't, because they know fine well that human societies can't work outside the system of freedom and within the confines of communism. And so again, like we said before, you guys are essentially right, but we need to add some more retardation. So the thing is, you can't. When you talk about eliminating the bourgeoisie, you're not eliminating individuals who have been assigned the status of bourgeoisie. What you are doing, because they're not individuals. Individuals don't exist. It's only this, spirit, this sort of Borg spectre spirit that exists of the bourgeoisie out there somewhere, right? And you find people to assign to that category. You don't. It's because remember, you need to remember, it's anti-scientific, it's anti-Western, and it's anti-human. So you don't go and find a person and go, aha. We have a description of this man. He fits the description of bourgeoisie. It's the other way around. It's like you need to go. You have the bourgeoisie, and you need to go and find a random individual who fits that box. And it doesn't matter if they actually are or not, because they, as an individual, are not actually culpable for their actions. And you're not punishing the individual. You're punishing the class all at once. It's completely retarded. It's madness. It's actual madness, because it's like, it can't exist in the real world in the sense of even linguistically it doesn't work, let alone as a policy. And so this is another reason to go back to Common Sense Guy's actual story about the Christianity. Christianity is based on quite a strict hierarchy, a meritocratic one at that, because it's the most, ideally, we know it doesn't work in practice as well, but ideally it's the most pious and gracious person that work their way up, and so priests and archbishops and popes, and then God at the top, because the more godly, that's how it's supposed to work, with variations depending on what denomination. That's the way we just described communism. It's topsy-turvy to the way a Christian Western hierarchy works, and so that's another reason it needs to be crushed.
Sounds good to me.
I agree. And it's also a doctrine that goes completely against what they believe in, as well as forms of hierarchies. But I think that you've touched on something that's very, very interesting, which is the idea of what was it? I completely lost where I was going, because I was going to do a transition into the next story. Responsibility, the idea of personal responsibility. I think that's absolutely the most important thing with people that like the idea of communism and socialism in general. It's to take away money that they don't and haven't earned to try and give it to themselves, because they always hide behind their idea of, I'm going to give to the poor. So why do you classify yourself as the poor then as well, when you're probably middle class, you're probably doing all right? Because if you notice, most working class people are not communists or socialists. They believe in pulling themselves up by the bootstraps, so to speak, and getting out and getting a job and doing what they need to do. It's generally the lower to higher middle class that always want to have a form of communism. They want to nick the rich's money to give to themselves. They just don't really care about the poor, because they think that they'll just pull people up. And that's all to do with personal responsibility, in my opinion, which is amazing, because now we're going to go and talk about Notre Dam. and the fire. But we're not just going to be talking about Notre Dame and the fire. We're going to be talking about, what do you think that if it happened in London? And this is done by Mr. Adam Bolton. I don't know if either of you two know who he is.
Is he that bloke who works on Sky?
Yes, he is a bloke that works on Sky. He's quite a big gentleman with balding hair, normally wears a blue suit.
And is quite a virtue signaling arsehole as well.
Yeah, some people would call him a narcissistical idiot.
Yeah, that's a very good description, yeah.
Yeah. So, Mr. Adam Bolton, editor-at-large, the dreadful fire at Notre Dame this week unified the whole world in dismay. I wouldn't say the whole world. There was lots of people that were trying to claim that it's to do with slavery and that they should all deserve it. But besides that, the conflagration, I believe I said that right, led the news here and elsewhere for several days. Yes, because you can't let bloody bad news set. You have to keep on bringing it back up and over again because you need the ratings. Sorry, I will try not to editalize as much as possible. Sympathy for the damage done to the iconic and historic cathedral in Paris quickly turned to applause for the new way President Emmanuel Macron rallied the French. Interesting conspiracy theory. Sorry, just popped into head. And pledged to rebuild Notre Dame even better within 5 years. Does that mean that he has to be elected again? Sorry, conspiracy theory. Moving on.
That's not happening.
France is our nearest neighbor, and we are yoked by a geographic to go through time side by side. So is the whole world, you fucking... Sorry. Doesn't matter if you're geologically located on one side of the Earth or the other side of the Earth. We are going to go through time side by side because we are the same fucking planet. Even Mars is going to be the same time and going through the same time as us. Even the sun, while we're still alive, will go through the... Anyway. Sorry. Idiocy. I hate idiocies, even though I'm probably the biggest one here. Sometimes as allies, sometimes as enemies, friends and foes, but forever different. Viva la difference. Great. So pondering that would have happened here had London suffered a Notre Dame type disaster, points up Franco-British differences and similarities in our attitude to wealth, religion and state. What would be our equivalent to Notre Dame, a building which somehow seems to incorporate the pride, history, and love of a nation? So this is Adam Bolton actually trying to do some work, but he makes a good question and a comparison here. What do you think? One, because I do this as a two-part question. One, what do you think would be the building that would unify even just the UK, let alone Europe at this point in time, to feel sorry for us? And second of all, do we think anybody actually would feel sorry for us at this moment in time if it happened here?
Well, we had similar, didn't we, back in '92? When was it? Kensington burnt. Was it actually Buckingham? One of the palaces was called caught fire, didn't it? When the Queen was
Kensington.
When the Queen was having her anus sabblebless. And but I mean, I don't remember it being like in a day of mourning or anything like that. It was just sort of, oh, well, that means we'll probably be putting our taxes up soon then. But I don't know, because, I mean, I get that, you know, there's a lot of religious historical buildings all throughout Europe, but it just depends on how a nation tends to feel about it at that particular time. I mean, I know they've made that loads of people in France are sad about it, but I bet honestly it's probably only the hardcore Catholics who probably give a shit, and most of the French probably don't even care.
I disagree with that.
I would put in that I actually felt a little bit of sadness knowing that Notre Dame was burning, and I'm definitely not fucking religious.
No. I'm not saying it's not a bad thing. It is a bad thing, because anything of historical significance should be, maintained and, respected. It's just that I'm talking about how people tend to be nowadays. It's kind of like we were talking about before, which is just living in ignorance. They're so wrapped up in their own lives, they don't really give a fuck about the wider importance of stuff. They might see it in the paper and think, oh, it's a shame. I was hoping to go see that next year or something like that. But they won't really distract them from what they're doing. They won't feel any sort of particular sadness. I mean, I've noticed it definitely over the sort of like the last maybe 20 years is that I mean, we went way over the top when Diana died. That was ridiculous, the way the whole sort of country went into this sudden, like whole month of mourning because she croaked it. And I think ever since then, that sort of hit as a zenith of stupidity, and it sort of caused like an effect where now when things happen or certain people die, or like I said, Notre Dame caught fire, there's almost like a sort of like a kind of cynicism around it. Because I mean, I've spoken to a few people about it, and they all sort of gave the same sort of standard response, which it's a shame, but you didn't get a sort of like any sort of emotional attachment to it, which was, bit of shame.
Well, that's quite interesting because I when I was talking to different people, I got more of not a religiosity sort of response, and not a case of people responding in ideological responses. I got actually quite a good, decent amount of people coming from a moral standing or emotional response, which was when we saw that Notre Dame was burning, we thought it was in essence a declaration of war or a declaration of Armageddon being put through. It's something that you would attribute to the end of days, so to speak, in not a literal term, but the idea of. And I don't know, I kind of get the same sort of. It's one of those buildings that you honestly think that would never go, would never be attacked, would never be. I'm not saying it was either, but you'd never think that it was going to be attacked or nothing would ever happen to it. And I think that was the point and question that I was trying to put forward. What do we think would be our equivalent to that in the United Kingdom? Would there be a group of people that would decide to come together or come around that aspect?
Well, my perspective on it is kind of the opposite of Magic Bollocks' perspective, in that I don't think that this can actually be overstated. There's only two buildings like that in Europe. There's not an equivalent in Britain, and there's only two buildings like it in Europe. There's the Duomo in Florence, and there's the Cathedral of Notre Dame, and it's because it's a weird cross section of different things that made it important. Firstly, it was a cathedral when they were important. Secondly, it was extremely old. It was 1,000 years old or something like that when it burned down. It took decades and decades to build, and it housed massive amounts of art.
800 years.
It was a huge amount of time, and and also it was public, which is very important because we don't have any spaces like that in Britain. That fit all those criteria. And I mean, like, allow me, just for the sake of making the point, to romanticize it a little bit, but there's no equivalent in Britain, and there's very few other equivalents in Europe where it's like somebody built, like a church or another built a using public money or royal money or whatever, a gift to the people, essentially, because it was a public church. Anybody could go in. Tourists could go in. I mean, I don't know about Notre Dame, but the Duomo still does public weddings in Florence. It's very public, and it's an icon of Europe, and it's more important than those two buildings that I mentioned are more important than the Vatican. Not in the sense of the religious significance, but in the sense of if you said to people, randoms, any cross section of society, name a church.
Yeah,
they'll name you. Sorry?
The notoriety, people to be able to remember the notoriety of the names.
No, it's more just fame.
Yeah, fine.
But like, so they would probably name Notre Dame or the Duomo. They probably, maybe the Vatican as well, and those are the three you'd get. You wouldn't get the ones in Barcelona and Portugal and stuff like that, even though they're very important. And so I think this is really the media are going to go into a massive amount of damage control over this, because I don't really think the cultural significance of what just happened can be overestimated. And the other thing is, Macron mentioned in the article He's talking about uniting France. He's had essentially war powers and martial law since, not him personally, but the French government has had that since Charlie Hebdo. The gendarmerie have not been off the street since Charlie Hebdo. The armed police.
No,
France is in a state of essentially lockdown all the time. We've seen what the streets of Paris are like. We've now seen, like with the immigrants, we've seen the yellow shirt movement rise. France has fallen to bits, and this is just the latest. It doesn't matter. People don't care why it burned down. People don't care whether it was an accident or negligence or it needed more government money or whether it was sabotage for religious or political reasons. People don't care anymore. This is showing up all the cracks that the media have been trying to plaster over for years. And every little group, you go on Twitter, every group, no matter which persuasion it is, they know exactly who to blame, and they're using Notre Dame as their fuel to make them rage. And I think it's extremely dangerous, and the media are going to go into massive damage control. And no, we don't have a building like that in Britain. Buckingham Palace could burn down, but it wouldn't be the same because it's not a public building that anybody can go to, and everybody knows it wasn't even the house of the royal family permanently. You know, like that was fairly recent as far as the age of Britain goes. So no, I don't think it can be overstated how important this is.
Do you know what? It's funny you saying that, CP, because I think you just made me realize, I think one of the reasons why the people I've spoken to about it have been so sort of indifferent, and again, it goes back to what we were saying earlier on, ignorance in a certain sense of they have no, or had no interest in, history. No interest in finding out about, because you think about what we all three of us learned when we were at school in history. What do they really teach us these days? If they teach us anything, it'll probably be the Second World War, and it'll be restricted to sort of like British history. You might get a little bit about the Industrial Revolution. You might get a little bit about maybe they like talking about colonialism these days, so they can tell the kids how evil we are. But they don't tend to talk about European history unless it's to make the EU seem like some kind of amazing, economic system that we must never leave or shit like that. But they never taught us about, especially Christian history. Maybe they might talk about, stuff about, Christmas and all that, but nothing else, because how many people, and this would just be an interesting thrown out there question. If you used to say to an English person, what do you know about Notre Dame? And I bet they would say if it wasn't for the Hunchback of Notre Dame, they would never have heard of it.
Possible.
Yeah, there'll be a few like that. The thing is with Britain as well, and you said Christian history, which is a good sort of reason we don't... When I say Britain doesn't have any buildings like that, that's not to say we never had buildings like that. But the thing is that Britain's history has been a lot more strange, let's say, than the French's in many respects. Because the thing is, we had lots of buildings like that, but what happened was, through various points in British history, we had like the sacking of the abbeys, we had the Plantagenets, we had Cromwell, we had the Reformation. So all the buildings that could have been like Notre Dame and were like Notre Dame have been in one way or another through either battles or any of the aforementioned wars and stuff. They've been destroyed, or their significance has been eroded in one way or another, or they've just been made private and they're not public access because they were so damaged during such and such a war that it needed rebuilt, and that cost a shit ton of money. So we did have lots of buildings like that here, but because of our we have not had an outright revolution in this, like an outright violent revolution in this country. We've had a couple of soft reboots, but we've never had an outright violent revolution, whereas a lot of the countries in Europe have. And
I would argue that Oliver Cromwell was a hard reset from monarchy.
Well, see, the thing is, I want to say yes, but the thing is that a lot of the institutions that were there before Cromwell still remained after Cromwell. So that's kind of what I mean. Like, it was a complete changing of...
You stopped. Monarchy, you weren't even allowed to enter back into the chamber after that. Monarchy was no longer the actual figurehead. It was just a... Anyway, yeah, carry on with your point anyway, yeah, sorry.
No, I agree with what you're saying. I do agree, but what I'm saying is, like, after the French Revolution, like, they fucking destroyed the monarchy. Like, it was gone. They didn't have one anymore. That's what I mean by we had a soft reboot. They had a revolution. And, Italy wasn't one country until fairly recently. Same with Germany. Poland has and hasn't been a country at various different points. Spain's had its fair share of problems, but again, probably more like Britain than the aforementioned countries. So, like, because of that, we've been in a constant state of change, whereas France has had lots of periods of stagnation and then huge upheaval like that. And so I think we could have had a Notre Dame incident with some of those buildings if they'd still been standing, but a lot of them are gone. But yeah, that's all I was going to add to that point.
Well, I was going to put an idea to both of you then. I know it's not an actual equivalent, but it's a building that I feel that a lot of people would rally around. And personally, I think that would be St. Paul's Cathedral, the White Dome of London. I think that if that was ever to be set on fire or blown up or anything else like that, I think a lot of people would rally around it. I don't think it would be the equivalent of a Notre Dame, but I think it is the closest building that we could have. Either that or London Bridge, the actual London Bridge.
It's yeah. When you think about it, we don't really have. I mean, we obviously have buildings with historical significance that have been, you know, standing for centuries, but like Trump said, that we don't seem to have that sort of cultural attachment to them. Because I'm sure, you know, like you said, if Buckingham Palace did burn down to the ground, there would, you know, it would be pushed that, you know, there's going to be days of mourning, blah blah blah, and all that about it. But you know, this kind of cynicism there would be around it, which is good. Fucking, you know, what's called tax draining bastards, you know.
Yeah,
so, but you know, actual buildings in our great and, you know, illustrious capital that really, you know, make you proud and want to stand up in your seat and hold your heart when you see it on the TV. We don't have that, you know. Like with, you know, Yanks, you can see them getting to their feet the second the Statue of Liberty's on the screen.
Yeah.
You know, or when the national anthem's being played. We don't do that for some reason.
Yeah, the thing is that none of the buildings meet that sort of cross section I was talking about. So you've got things like Buckingham Palace, House of Commons, Tower Bridge, Common Sense said London Bridge as well, and St. Paul's, and they are all that significant. But the thing is that they don't have the attachment because they're not public spaces. Windsor as well.
And what about the Tower of London? Because that is
no, that wouldn't make a difference, because the thing is that that's historically been a symbol of persecution, really.
No, I understand, but also for a lot of people didn't just do it for the Christianity views. They also did it for the heritage of the building in itself, the national history of the building. And
yeah, but I mean, like that's what I mean. It's like a Venn diagram, you know. Like Notre Dame was in that sweet spot where it just everything overlaps, whereas every building we're going to mention will be failing in such one aspect or another. And then you've got, like, if you take York Minster, for instance, that's very Notre Dame-ish, but the thing is it doesn't have the cultural and national importance. So people feel just as fondly about York Minster, but it's not the same significance, be it culturally, politically, artistically, whatever, even though people really love it. And whereas St. Paul's, it's like, okay, St. Paul's is much more in the national psyche, but people don't really have the same affection towards it. Westminster Abbey as well. Also, a lot of these are very associated with the sort of London establishment now as well, because they're not public spaces. If they were public spaces, that would maybe be different. So there's that too. Scotland, I can't think of a single fucking one. I mean, maybe Stirling Castle or Edinburgh Castle, but at the same time, it would be very different. Because the way the country, like, it would just be different. I don't think it would be a Notre Dame type incident. People would be just as mournful, and it would be a massive blow. But at the same time, it's like they're already so stupidly well looked after, and they're castles, not cathedrals.
Yeah.
So again, symbols of power rather than, say, you know, culture and religion. So it's a different theme. So that's why I mean Notre Dame's just in that sweet spot where everything that we're mentioning works for it, and it's just burnt down. And then everybody wants to blame somebody as well, which, so like what I mean is, like, all the cracks in France are being opened by this, because the people who blame the immigrants are saying, you know, the Muslims set it on fire. The people who say that the government's too austere, but they're saying the money should have been provided and it's the government's fault that way. But the people who think the government's too socialist are blaming the government that way. And, you know, everybody with a grievance is using Notre Dame because they're fucking outraged, as well as the fact that they would have just been upset even if France was fine.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I mean, there's so many different theories going around of how certain people may have set light to it. I mean, there's probably more evidence for one group of people setting a light to it if it was set alight than any other. But I think most of us are probably going to go down the route of it is a form of an accident.
Well, that
I'm
group
not saying
that you're
it is.
talking about aren't known for being shy.
Sorry, mate.
So we'd know all about it, you know, like. But the thing is that it's. I just wanted to say after my thing of saying that Britain doesn't have a Notre Dame, like that's not what's pissing me off on the other side is people going Britain sucks because it doesn't have the Notre Dame. It's like, no, this is the thing people don't get. Europe only has two buildings like that. That's what I mean. It's like you have the Duomo and you have Notre Dame in Europe.
I would argue the 16th chapel as well.
Nah, I don't think. Like, I think people would be that level of outpour, but not as many people know about it. Or like, I would love it if the Sistine Chapel. I would love it if more buildings fitted that criteria, but I don't think. Maybe, but I don't think it would. Even Versailles, that's the other thing. If Versailles had burned down, I don't think anybody would have gave a shit because it's a royal building. It was built in opulence and corruption and all that.
No, the Germans may have done.
Yeah, yeah. So like it had to be Notre Dame, and it's not just the Parisians. It's all the French and most of Europe that are upset by this because there's only two buildings like it in Europe, and I hate the people are using this to do down Britain. Because it's like, oh yeah, Britain doesn't have a Notre Dame. It's like, bitch, Spain and Germany don't have a Notre Dame. It's not. No. There's only two in the continent, and now one of them is gone. Yeah. Maybe one will eclipse. Maybe people will start looking at, you know, where you said the Sistine Chapel. Maybe now people will start looking at these buildings and going, oh no, that one's important and that one's important, and we will see people revere the Sistine Chapel and I can't remember the name of it. The one in Spain that, you know, the pilgrimage one. You go on the Camino and you end up there. The big cathedral in Spain. It might just be Barcelona.
Or is that in Madrid?
I think they're connected by the pilgrimage. I think that's the idea. So like those two, you know, maybe people will start looking at these buildings a bit more reverently, and
maybe we will remember them.
Yeah. So I wish there was more buildings like it, but and hopefully there will be now, and because this will thrust it into the public psyche a little bit more, but. I don't think people will realize Notre Dame isn't anything on its own. This was a big event, and it was a result of many other big events.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah. I would like to touch on something that you mentioned before. I think it's probably the most important thing of the fire of Notre Dame in itself, and that it doesn't matter what side of politics you are, it doesn't matter what side of religion you are, somebody somewhere is at fault, and I'm going to use my ideology to find out who those people are and put them as the scapegoats for this. We see that in the media in the West. We see that in the media in America. We see that everywhere. Everybody's trying to find scapegoats. Everybody's got conspiracy theories and everything else like that. And I find it so interesting that everybody would always claim that the virtue signaling of the left and in general the right as well, because both sides seem to do that quite a bit. But everybody's virtue signaling to find out what ideology fits to their set principles and ideas. They're trying to find out what they think is the correct thing rather than actually finding out what is. I find that extremely interesting.
Another thing to like hop off that point as well, actually, that you've made me think of is the fact that all the now, bearing in mind the three of us are atheists, but we are atheists with a sort of let's say a grasp of religion. Like we're not fedora tippers, and so one of the things that was amusing for me is the people that like to pretend that that Europe or white people or whatever have no culture, the West has no culture, and also that religion is a load of shit. All of them are like, oh, it's just a building, blah 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 blah, and I'm just sitting there quiet like, oh, just a building. So that's why everybody's talking about it, like religious, atheist, foreign, outside Europe, in Europe, American. Everybody on the fucking planet is talking about it, but it's just a building. I think it's more than just a building.
Well, the thing is, It's like with any sort of form of tragedy. Everybody seems to be using it to politicize their own points. I saw so many people on Twitter going, I'm glad that it's burning because the symbolism of French colonialism and imperialism is now being burnt and ransacked. And all of the relics that they had in the Notre Dame is now can be returned to the African people. Yes, I have seen tweets that have actually said that. And I find that absolutely heinous for people to do that on the day in which it's happening. I found it heinous for people on the left and on the right when Christchurch happened. I find it heinous when people on the left and the right use any form of tragedy to be able to politicize anything. At least wait to the day after. At least wait until it's smoldering rather than still on fucking fire.
It does tend to prove how sickening and hateful some people are, especially these are the people who call us well, they accuse us of hate speech, and yet they're rotten to the core, these people, that they just delight in the destruction of history because they see it as oppression, even though you're talking about something that doesn't apply nowadays. You know, what happened 100 years ago, we today are not responsible for. How many slaves has the three of us owned? How many slaves did our own ancestors own? I'm guessing probably 0 between the three of us. So
my ancestors actually have been and owned slaves. So,
see, I was having this conversation with my dad beforehand, not before this, but before in general. And I was saying to him, if you go back far enough, no matter what lineage of DNA that you have, at some point, you would have been a slave. Your ancestors, at some point, somewhere along the lines, throughout human history, some point would have been a slave. No matter how far back you have to go, you would have been a slave at some point.
well, this is something like. Can I make? I want to make just a quick point about the Notre Dame thing, and then I'll work my way back. I won't go off on one, but
yeah, no, you're fine. You're fine.
The thing is, it's like, why are people so willing to throw away their own heritage as well? Because it's like, I'm not French, but I am like of the West, you know, like I'm of Christendom. Like I might not be a Christian, but I'm of Christendom. I'm of the West, and Judeo-Christian is blah 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 blah. Like I feel that is part of the root that my culture comes from, and I am a product of that culture. So why are people so willing to throw that away? It's bizarre to me. It's like Notre Dame. Okay, maybe it's not as much mine as the guy that lived across the road from it, but it's mine as well, because, you know, in the same way that any part of Europe that has been part of history and has affected my upbringing in any way and my culture in any way, I can have that as part of my heritage. And people are just so willing to throw that away of like, oh no, it's not. I don't care.
Well, it's that thing again, isn't it? That these wannabe communists. So, you know, I don't know if it's because they've learned to believe it themselves or whether they've been indoctrinated, but it's that apparently the West is evil and always has been evil and must be destroyed, and every evidence that it ever existed must be destroyed with it. And, you know, they hate themselves because they're white, because they see themselves as oppressors. They hate the countries they live in. They hate everything about their heritage. And they are the real hateful people, because they've got, their hearts are just full of hate. They hate themselves. They hate their country. They hate their heritage. They hate their culture. You know, in normal circumstances, they would have just, you know, slashed their wrists because they're, you know, so miserable, but it's all based on this poisonous ideology they've signed up to, and it's
I know it's a bit cheesy, but it's like if you look at, I think that Lord of the Rings is a good analogy because that takes the borders out of it for people and makes it probably easier for me to make this point. But it's like if you look at the Middle Earth was divided up into like different countries, obviously, but like all the ones that were quote the goodies were divided up into Arnor. So that's like Gondor, all the elf places, Rohan, the Shire, all these places, basically all the goody countries, right? So the thing was, and the thing is, it's like the whole point was, if any part of Arnor is under threat, whether you're in that part or not, you have skin in the game, whether you know it or not. And that was a war, so in peacetime, it works in reverse of like, well, it's part of your heritage, you know. So that's how I feel about it. It's just like, okay, I don't give a shit too much regarding like the building I maybe would never have gone, but it's part of a network that made my country and my country made me. And so I don't want to throw that away and just pretend this was just a bunch of bricks thrown together. This is important, and maybe not a big turning point. I don't think people will let it be a big turning point, if that makes sense. But
Yeah.
something's happened. But before I went on to that, like, what was it you said? Common sense, because you gave me an idea.
I was saying that if you go back far enough, then we've all been slaves at one point.
Oh yeah. That was the thing. Like, people just don't know their history regarding that, because like, why do slaves get this like fucking? I don't know. Like, it's not like a special status, but it's like everybody's blinkered by slaves. Because like the thing is, even the people who are arguing against, you know, the politically correct nonsense we're talking about, even they will argue like, oh, but white people were slaves too, and all that sort of stuff, which is true, right? But my thing is, it's like, yeah, but why just slaves? You don't understand. The guys that were sent to pick up those slaves were just as much under the thumb as the slaves were, because if they didn't go, they'd be fucking executed for treason and things like that. Like, everybody, there's that Taboo with Tom Hardy, and it was brilliant. He had an awesome line in that, because he was a slave trader who got out of it, and like he was having this horrible flashback, and like there's a line in it where it's like, we are all owned and we all own others. And I was like, that's fucking perfect, because everybody is part of the system and nobody is free to one extent or the other, you know? And so the British soldiers, that, you know, just the ones that were sent over, or the members of the Navy, they were conscripted or press ganged. You know, they didn't have a choice in what they were doing. So the persecution and the, quote, slavery extended much further than just slaves. Everybody who wasn't royalty was under it.
Well, I just want to add something to this, because I find it very, very interesting. As well as you already know, Mr. Compound, I've been trying to talk to somebody to try and get them to come on and talk about reparations. And don't get me wrong, fine, whatever. If you're actually genuinely alive and you were in that time period, you probably should have reparations. But I would actually say, if this was about the government's understanding and giving recognition to slavery and everything else like that, and it was really that much of an issue, and it was really that much of a problem, why are you not saying anything about the Northern African slave trade to the Middle East at this moment in time? Why are you not going after that? Why are you not trying to stop your brothers and your sisters from being sold into slavery, if that's really what your issue is about the slavery? Or is it about actually just trying to get some free money from something that's never affected you? I don't know. I can only guess.
I think it's a fair assumption there, common sense. Plus, it's also to give the Democrats an excuse to bribe the blacks for the 2020 election as well. Because they tend to go very quiet about repatriations until you get closer to another election cycle.
They do, and especially if you've already had a black leader in charge as well. Though I suppose they don't classify him as black anymore.
No.
I think that the simple answer is, if you're advocating for reparations, then you get some free shit. If you're going, oh, hey, common sense, that's a good point, I better go and do something, you're actually having to expend your own time and resources to help others. You don't get a damn thing for that. So I think that's the root of the problem.
Sorry, carry on.
No, I was done.
Yep, all done here as well.
Yeah, I'm not. I can't find where to turn this fucker off, so carry on for a second.
But yeah, so magic bollocks. I think it's just the gives me that mentality, personally.
Well, no, it's the wondering what he's been browsing all the time we've been talking. Do you notice that we haven't actually seen his hand?
Do we ever? Do we ever? Oh God, maybe this is just.
Hey, that's fine. If we've caught him white-handed, I'm not going to complain. Like you said, anything to get them clicks. Ah, dear. But yeah, it's the old thing again of, if you just prepare to look a little harder beyond the headline, you know, the whole reason why they're doing something, like you said, giving blacks repatriations, wanting you to get rid of guns, wanting you to just ignore the Notre Dame fire, just things like that. There's always something behind it if you're willing to look. And my problem is so many people just won't. And so many people these days are just, you know, headline skimmers, aren't they? Read that.
Didn't we do that today? Didn't
No.
I
You actually read the whole one last time, didn't you? So you were.
I did one. But
yeah, you were a good boy.
I mean, generalization, and we basically were headline readers today.
I know, but you were a good boy. You read one, so that counts.
Oh, scratch me behind the ear.
Oh, I want to scratch you behind the balls.
Oh, yes, please. Speaking of ball crackers, I suppose I can use that as a very good transition, I suppose. So, EU Commission Chief John Duca. Oh, no, that's the fucking wrong one. Bastard. That's not what I wanted to talk about. I mean, it is something I wanted to talk about. That was supposed to be a video that I was going to be doing. Anyway, I'll be back in a second. I've got to get something. Be right back.
Okay. Right. What should we talk about then, CP, in his absence? Anything particularly controversial you want to bring up?
I usually need prompted to be controversial. I don't know. What about yourself?
Well, I don't know because you know, I don't know what is more likely to get you banned these days. What actual topics you're allowed to and not talk about, because YouTube's algorithm is getting very odd in the way it's.
Here's one for you, actually, just because you said about getting banned.
Yeah.
Where do you think Hitler is today, enjoying his birthday? You know, where do you think he's celebrating?
No, that's a very good one. Now, it depends on your belief on, you know, did he actually just, you know, die in his bunker after shooting himself and being set on fire, or did he manage to escape to South America and then became? There was lots of theories that there was. What I mean, I like the spit image one that he was Margaret Thatcher's neighbor in the 80s and was actually giving her political advice. That was,
man,
yeah, that was a fantastic idea. If only that could have been true. But I don't know what would you picture, you know, the Führer doing on a nice warm sunny day like today, you know, celebrating what would be, I'm assuming, he's like maybe 100 and how old were you been, about 102 or something?
Hey guys, look, I'm back. Look, story.
Oh no, too late, boy. You're behind the times now. bring up the head story on there about you know, Hitler's birthday. I'm sure it's on the Beeb somewhere.
No, it's not actually. I've actually looked for it. It's not.
Jesus, I thought they would all have
the Beeb or the Sky.
BBC.
Well, considering that the BBC are now a bunch of socialists, I thought they'd be, you know, very much willing.
Yeah, but they're not national socialists, though, are they?
Well, international socialists, I would say.
Hitler was a funny sort of nationalist if you think about it, because it was like, oh yeah, I'm a nationalist who thinks that everywhere should be my nation. It's like, well, that's not really nationalism, is it?
No.
He didn't actually think everywhere should be. He only thought that it should be the Balkan states and most of the West up to actual Russia.
The nice countries.
Well, you say nice countries. I mean the eastern countries and the Balkan states. That's what he wanted the motherland. Oh, sorry, the fatherland to be.
He loved us, didn't he? Loved the.
Yes, he loved us.
Absolutely admired the British. He loved our royal family. They loved him.
They did indeed. Yes, in fact, in some cases, probably a little bit too much.
Yes.
Yeah, and then you've got people like Oswald Mosley who really liked him, and then obviously Oswald Mosley and Ken Clark are buddies. So, you know.
No, are you trying to say that the Conservatives and people that like the European project are something akin to Nazis?
No, I'm saying outright that the European Union are Nazis.
Fair enough. And on that note,
and also the delay of Brexit could actually be a early birthday present for the Führer himself, as he sips some horrifyingly awful German wine on a beach in Argentina.
I thought you were going to imply that actually the best place for him on his birthday would actually be in a cafe in Brussels.
Yeah, I think the best place for Hitler at any time is tied up by his ankles from a tree with me punching him in the face. But
why just you?
No, he's just doing what CBS has told him to do.
Oh yeah. You got to punch a Nazi just because you say that they're a Nazi.
Yep.
Hey,
I
if I
suppose
take orders
I should
from
try
fucking
and
no one.
get this stream
Yeah.
back
Anyway,
onto actual
speaking of
course.
Nazis, here he is.
Yeah, so I suppose I should actually get back onto course and actually not be distracted by my two co-hosts that try to actually get me derailed from the stream. But the actual story I wanted to talk about was obviously UKIP's Carl Benjamin, not sorry for MP rape comments, which is a forced title in itself because it wasn't a rape comment. It was saying I wouldn't even rape you. Now, whether you like Carl Benjamin or Sargon of Akkad is irrelevant at this point in time. You can see it for the fact that the media is completely taking everything out of context to attack him rather than attacking his policies or tackling his ideas. Because if they were to attack his ideas, they would actually see it as a good idea or good ideas in general, because he does preach equality in most aspects. The problem is that you can see that the media don't care about that. You said a bad word 3 years ago, so we're going to say bad words to you and about you. So a YouTuber turned UKIP candidate who said he wouldn't even rape you, a female Labour MP, has refused to apologise for what? Saying that he wouldn't rape her? Interesting. Maybe he should have said he was going to rape her, then he wouldn't have to apologise. I mean, fuck me, what do you want him to say? Carl Benjamin wants to stand to become an MEP for the South West for UKIP in the European elections on May 23rd. Members of the UKIP's Swindon branch said Mr. Benjamin had only joined the local party recently and he should be deselected. There's a lot of people saying that he should be deselected, but I don't think that he's going to be deselected, and it's not just because of these rape tweets that, well, I say rape tweets have fallen into the trap, haven't I? It's not just because of him saying I wouldn't even rape you that the people are doing this. Is because they just don't like Sargon of Akkad and having a YouTuber on. But besides the point, he says, Sargon says, I'm not going to apologize for my crimes against political correctness. I hate political correctness, he said. And he does say that very vehemently, and we do have a video to actually go through to watch, which is courtesy of Mr. Crumplepoint. So thank you very much for that one. And we'll go through that one after we've dissected this. So his use of Twitter in 2016, again 3 years ago, hit the headlines when he responded to Labour MP Jess Phillips, who at the time was literally taking the piss out of men's mental health and men's mental health awareness days and talking about that in Parliament. So just for full context, was concerning over threats of sexual assault for some reason by saying, I wouldn't even rape you, feminism is cancer. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think that this was the most intelligent thing from Mr. Akkad to do, but if you do look at the actual language that he says, I wouldn't even rape you. That's not implying that he's going to rape you. In fact, it's a definitive statement saying that I won't rape you. I mean, as I've said before, I've had my problems with Mr. Akkad on many occasions, but you have to be truthful and be honest in this interaction, in my opinion. What do you guys think about this? Because there's not too much difference apart from them going on about different ideas and should he be deselected or not.
Well, have you actually watched the video yet? The press conference? Yes,
I have. We will be watching it afterwards. So
yeah, now it's fascinating because the reason I watched it was I use a forum where they were all saying that it was a terrible, it was a right shambles and all that. So I watched it and I thought, well, it's not the most organized, and even the lady who does the press conference has to tell Dank and Sargon off at one point because they're talking at the wrong time. But to be fair, it's refreshing to see somebody who's really going to say to the press, you're a bunch of fucking liars and I'm not apologizing to you, go fuck yourself, which is always nice.
I absolutely
He's been saying what we've been screaming at the TV for years when a politician that we think's an okay guy or woman gets pilloried by the media, and we're screaming at the TV, just tell them to fuck off. We don't care what they think. And then they go and do it.
Yeah.
Sorry, common sense. Also, I really, really despise Jess Phillips with a passion myself because she is a revolting human being. I mean, if you know anything about her, she's come from a rabidly left-wing family. She basically took feminism up as a shortcut way of getting on the all-woman shortlist to get to be selected as an MP, simply because she knew she would get a shitload of money and wouldn't really have to put much effort in. Apparently, most
doesn't put any effort in.
Yeah, apparently most of her local constituency can't stand her because she very rarely does any appointments with her constituents, and when she does, she doesn't fucking do anything for them.
Yeah.
I've heard reports that apparently she smells because then again, you've only got to look at her. She doesn't wear any makeup. Her hair always looks greasy and horrible. Because I forget where I heard it. Somebody said that she actually stinks, which wouldn't surprise me because she probably thinks like deodorant and washing yourself is patriarchy. But also the whole thing that brought that up, and I think Sargon did it because he just got so angry with her, was because, like Common Sense said, she was laughing at men killing themselves due to lack of mental health awareness for men, and that men have much higher suicide rates than women. She was basically taking the piss and laughing at it, and then she threw, because she started getting attacked for it, she threw all this shit back about, well, I get rape threats or all the time. No proof was provided. She could have put up some, screen caps or showed us tweets. It was just all usual made up shit. So of course, then he threw the "I wouldn't even rape you" at her, and she liked to pretend at the time, oh, I didn't care. It meant nothing to me. And now she's going on that, she's going to be the scar on Carl Benjamin's political career and all this crap.
In actual fact, didn't she actually go on national news and actually say, I didn't even pay attention to what was being said. You've only just brought it to my attention because I was playing with my children.
Yeah, yeah. I'll tell you another thing I fucking hate about that bitch as well. Do you know who Toby Young is?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a he's a journalist for the Spectator, and he's quite a right-leaning.
Fucking love that guy.
Yes,
he's
a very entertaining chap. Now he got a job on the education committee for the government.
Was this her that was behind it?
No. This is part of it. CP, okay, right? She was part of the campaign to get rid of him. Because there was loads of people. They went through his tweets and found one from 10 years ago where he basically said some woman he was in the company of had nice tits. And so, well, he's a misogynist, he's a disgusting bigot, and she was part of the campaign to get him off the panel. And of course, like a bloody fool, he resigned from it.
Well, he did have a lot of pressure from his feminist leader.
Well, again, he should have told her to get fucked. And,
he explained it interestingly because he says that he thinks that he was right to resign, but that he wishes he hadn't apologized.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
And I think that that's correct because he didn't want to mar the board.
Yes.
He didn't want to drag them down with him.
But anyway, the best thing...
If it had been like a business of his that he ran, that would have been different, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he wishes he hadn't apologized as well. So.
But the thing is, the best thing came was, I think maybe a couple of months later. Now, this was common knowledge anyway, but then the press decided to start reporting on it. You remember Joe Cox's wonderful husband, Brendan? The one who actually looks like some kind of sexual deviant, regardless of, his what happened to his wife and all this sort of stuff. Do you know that he used to be a higher up in Save the Children until late 2015 when he left? Because there was going to be a investigation into his conduct over allegations of sexual misconduct. Well, they decided for some reason to print this in 2017, or might have even been last year, I can't remember, about his leaving of the charity under a cloud. And instead of giving the same to Brendan as they gave to Toby, whereas Brendan's one was much more serious and there was actual physical, the hard evidence of what he'd done, but he basically left before the investigation ever took place.
Well, he wasn't the only one. There was a lot of charities all at once did that.
That's right, yeah.
Because we know that they use these charities as fucking a shopping list for these pedo rings as well.
Yes. But my point is,
too much into that one.
Yeah, but my point is that all these people, including that cow Jess Phillips, instead of doing the same as they did to Toby and called him as, you know, disgusting sexist bigot, it was like, oh, no. Brendan's changed. He's learned his lesson. He understands what he did wrong. Let's forgive him. Let's show compassion. And it's all because he's on the same ideological page. Because
hey, you missed the most important part. The fact that he literally 2 weeks after that had another allegation thrown at him for another party that happened after Jess Phillips said that he changed.
Oh, interesting. Oh, I didn't see that. Common sense. But
yeah, I did a video on it. Good old Mr. Cox.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, though, that just like this whole situation is, it's like one of those stupid onions. You know, you peel off a layer of stupid, and there's more stupid underneath. And it's like, it's meta stupid, because it's like, firstly, the headline's stupid. It's like, imagine it with a different type of crime. So it's like, Benjamin refuses to apologize for bank robbery comments after walking into a bank and saying, well, I would never rob this shithole, and leaving. Like, it wouldn't be like the police. Well, they might, because it's fucking Britain. But like, the police wouldn't, within any sense, go and then investigate him for bank robbery because he walked into a bank and said he wouldn't rob it. You know, so there's that. There's the fucking blatant misleading nature of the headline. There's the fact that the press were told by him, you know, we hate you and you're full of shit, and we're actually just here to make you have to report the video.
Yeah.
Well, just quickly before that starts, it's like they could have done themselves a lot of credit if they had gone into that and done their jobs. They could have really turned things around for themselves if they had just summoned the microgram of decency it would have taken to go, you know what, I'm going to do my job today. And they'd gone in and said, look, what a set of numpties this lot are, but you know what, they did something pretty interesting, and it'll be really fascinating to see where it leads, and I don't have much of an opinion on it. Here's what happened. Like, if they'd just done that, people would have gone, oh wow, journalists aren't all arseholes. But now what they've done is, because they've doubled down and halved their readership again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, without going too far into talking about the video, without watching the video, the most important and funniest thing about the whole media circus that was going on about the UKIP inauguration of Mr. Sargon of Akkad and Mr. Count Dankler was that after they answered the question twice about the rape stuff or alleged rape claims and whatever, was they kept on fucking asking the same question, to the point where Jared Batten actually come out and said, why are you asking the same question? We've answered it.
Yeah, and Jared Batten's a bit like them in that he's not like an edgy boy, but he's a completely like anti-bullshit. And if you look at that time that Joe Cox on not the Daily Politics tried to pillory him about the stupid fucking Tommy Robinson issue, he speaks to people. Well, that's what he does. He speaks to people, right? So his manner is very much a case of he doesn't care that there's a camera and 3 other people there. He's speaking to Joe Cox.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the problem they have with him, is he's too normal. He talks like a normal person.
Yeah, so while he's of his generation and he's a bit more sensible and a bit more sort of like responsible than those two, they've got that in common, that their heart's in the right place, I genuinely think, and they're completely anti-BS. And I don't think Batten's going to stop here. I think he's going to go, right, I don't mean he's going to go around YouTube recruiting. I just think he's going to go, right, okay, that's the young'uns taken care of. Let's go and find somebody similar of each demographic. So let's go and find, you know, somebody that middle-aged, sensible people like and who doesn't indulge in bullshit, and do the same with all the different demographics and pull together something like that. And who saw him coming? Like, nobody saw this guy coming. I thought UKIP was done. And he's just come out and really surprised me consistently.
UKIP have done really well under Jared Batten, to be fair. After bloody Bolton and the rest of it, Nuttall, they completely and utterly somehow managed to fuck up the amazing platform that Nigel Farage managed to do for. And by the way, the Brexit party in itself, great for the idea of the European elections, but for what Nigel Farage is trying to say about trying to shake up all of politics and British politics, Jared Batten says very, very well in the video, which we are going to get to very, very soon, but he says it in the video. If he was really interested, and I've said this before on other streams and videos, if he was really interested in actually making politics change Why is he not putting anybody into local councils? Why is he not doing local politics? If he really wanted something to change and really wanted the aspects and the aspire to actually change things, then why isn't he actually trying to change anything? It's to me, Nigel Farage seems to be one of those people that just wants money from politics. And don't get me wrong, I like Nigel Farage. I think he's very, very good at orating. I think he's very, very articulate. I think he's very, very passionate for what he believes in. I just also don't think that he fully believes in what he says.
No, I agree with that. Yeah,
I think that Batten handled that part brilliantly as well, because he didn't qualify his statements. He just said, "Look, I think Nigel Farage did a brilliant job, but at the moment, I completely disagree with what he's doing." And then he just stopped there. Like he didn't make any character judgments. He just observed the past and the present and said what he thought of it. And I thought that was also a very good move, because I wasn't sure what I thought of it. I previously quite liked Nigel Farage, and then since Brexit Day, well, the day of the vote, I still like the guy, but my opinion of him is consistently dropping for basically the reasons you've outlined. And I think part of it is, Batten summed it up really nicely, and I think part of it is also that sort of, how you get like good wartime leaders and good peacetime leaders? Yeah. Well, Farage was the guy that got the campaign on, to make Brexit a thing. And Batten's the guy that's going to keep UKIP relevant and be not a single issue party and have a domestic policy as well as a European policy. And Farage, I just don't think is capable of that. And I think he's going to go the way of Churchill. And it's like, mate, you were good at the time, but we have no use for you now. Bye.
Yeah, I think that too. It's almost like he is a Eurosceptic chap and always has been, but he didn't ever expect it to happen. And so you can sort of, if you believe, it's almost like the SNP to a certain extent, is that they're the independence party that doesn't really want independence. Because if it does, they sort of then become irrelevant. So they kind of like I'll support it, even though I believe it'll never, ever happen, because that way I can, I'll be always relevant because I'm campaigning for something that'll never change and never happen. But
well, the other thing is Farage has kind of fallen into his own trap, because if you look at him going on, Stephen Crowder, like Farage has been out talking about how Dankula is an arsehole, Sargon's an arsehole, Batten's an arsehole, and UKIP are a joke, and Tommy Robinson's an evil Nazi, etc., right? And then he goes on Stephen Crowder, and Stephen Crowder is these guys' biggest cheerleader. Like, not Dankula. I've not seen Dankula on him. I think that's more for logistical reasons than anything else. I think he probably wants him on, but Crowder has bent over backwards to help out Tommy Robinson. He's had, I'm sure if he hasn't had Sargon on, I think they've shared a platform.
No, he's had Sargon.
Yeah, he's had on.
Yeah. And so there was a time that Farage was on Crowder talking about just Trump-related stuff and Brexit.
Yeah, and
it's like you see Farage talking about people like that we just mentioned. It's like, mate, you don't realize you're now becoming out of touch, because the movement that I don't mean exploited in a nasty way. I just mean he used it. He tapped into it.
I think the use of the word exploit, I think, is the correct word for what he did for Brexit. He saw that there was disparity there. He saw that there was a way for him to be able to elevate himself there. And he even said himself on the night he doesn't think he's going to win, but it's been a great battle.
Yeah. That was always a bit odd, because he must have seen the real polls. He must have.
It shows you how out of touch he must now be, though, if he can go on Stephen Crowder's show and say, well, not say, I don't think he mentioned them on the stream, but he's on Stephen Crowder, not knowing that Stephen Crowder is mates with all these people and believes in what they're saying.
Yeah.
And then he goes and badmouths them, but like later on, it's like, dude, you're out of step here. Like, well, not out of step, because that makes it sound very, compulsive. But you know what I mean? Like, it would be like if he slagged off Jordan Peterson as well, like on the more lefty side of the spectrum. It's like, dude, what are you doing? Like, all your fans are his fans, or all your fans are their fans, and he doesn't.
What were you going to say, Mr. Bollocks?
Well, I was just thinking there where you was talking about, him on election night calling it early, saying we've lost. I'm starting to wonder now. You remember a few days before the vote, he unveiled that poster that everyone said was appalling, because it was basically showing the queue of all those immigrants trying to get in at what's called the southern border of Europe, and
Yeah.
basically the slogan was "Europe isn't working," and the whole idea was a lot of people said it was disgusting, it was racist, blah blah blah. Now, obviously, to the most people, it was just no. That's actually what is happening. The European Union is not controlling its borders properly.
Yeah.
But do you think possibly that, as I said, that Farage is the type of bloke who actually, you know, what is Eurosceptic but never believed it would happen, and maybe in a slight panic at the end of the, you know, the come closer to the actual vote, he would do a stunt that was so offensive and so, you know, was going to get a lot of negative press. Thought maybe that I need to pull a stunt to make sure that we vote to remain in the European. I know that's conspiracy theory, and I know it's a bit.
I think he's lost too much to, like, that is a bit too conspiratorial. Like, he's done nothing but suffer for all this, and I think that he's just losing his bottle a little bit. I still don't think he would ever. I think he believes in Brexit, really do, but I think what's happening now is he's had this sort of moment where he's just run out. It's like, I don't want to be punched in the face anymore. I don't want to be shoved anymore. I don't want to have eggs thrown at me anymore. And I'm going to be a bit more soft on these issues and copped out a little bit, which, you know, I don't think I would have got as far as he has.
Oh, no, I agree with that. But at the same time, surely he must have known that you couldn't leave it to the actual establishment, which is what, 75, 80% remain, would actually carry out the will of the vote. And we can see it all being played out now, can't we?
Well, but the thing is, and I'll let CSG get on the video soon, I promise. Like, I just wanted to make the quick point that you're forgetting that general election where UKIP got 5 million votes but 1 MP, and Farage was as devastated and surprised by that outcome as anybody, because obviously
he didn't think people were going to support him.
Yeah,
that's the funny thing. I mean, I know where you're kind of going with it, but I would like to put the caveat in. I honestly think that with Nigel Farage, he did it under the point of trying to shake up politics.
Yeah.
I think he's one of those people that wants the establishment to change, but he doesn't want to be the establishment to make the change. He never wants to be the one that's in charge to make the change. So he does it enough to shake up the politics. As he did with UKIP, he was always going, I want to shake up the politics. I want to make things as hard as possible for both the Conservatives and Labour. He's always said that throughout his UKIP career at the beginning.
Yeah.
And he's always gone to that point of he wants to be the change that sparks the Conservatives and Labour to change. He wants to be that spark, but he doesn't want to be it. And that's why I've always kind of supported Nigel Farage, but I've always took a step back from him and realized that he's not going to be the one that's going to lead us into battle. He's not going to be the King Arthur to our story.
He's basically our General Melchett, isn't he?
Yes.
He'll send you to battle, but he won't be there on the front lines fighting with you.
In my opinion, yes.
You could argue that he's more conservative and that he just wants to restore the respectability of these British institutions, whereas people like us and modern UKIP don't believe those institutions have any respectability. So he's much more conservative, whereas the new wave are much more revolutionary. And
in a way, I agree with you.
That's where he steps off.
Yeah, no, in a way, I agree with you. Here's what you would call an old school conservative, and I do think that the people that are now supporting UKIP are the people that actually generally want to shake up and they generally want to change politics to actually be a democracy rather than it being an autocracy. In my opinion, anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, I have nothing to say. So if you want to play now, unless Mr. Bollocks has something.
Mr. Bollocks has always got something to say.
Oh, I've always got. But there was something in the chat I missed earlier on, which was a very good point that Ant Jack made. Was you know, they kept asking Sargon the same question as you said over and over. Common sense. How come when Jess Phillips is interviewed, why didn't they bring up the fact that you once sent a tweet saying that you want to stab Jeremy Corbyn? But you didn't say I wouldn't even stab you. You said I want to stab him.
Well, no, I was having this conversation with Mr. Ant Jack in itself. She actually said I would have stabbed him in the front.
Oh,
where Mr.
right.
Ant Jack was saying he was saying that she said I will stab him in the front. No, she said I would have stabbed him.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. Yeah.
I just thought I'd bring in the full context and actually what she said.
Well, seeing as they constantly take what he said out of context, which is won't apologize for rape tweet. Now, automatically, that sets a narrative that he's implying he would have raped her.
At some point.
Yeah.
Also, CSG, are you going to play the whole video or just Sargon's comments?
I'm going to try and play the whole video because we do have enough time. So if anybody wants to say anything, just say stop, and then we'll go into talking about it.
Fire
Okay, I'm
away.
ready when you are then.
Okay, all right. I'll get the video playing then. I'll present to everybody, so if we do start talking, it doesn't cut in and out. As long as I can actually get the fucking thing to play, because I'm a fucking boomer and I have no idea what the fuck I'm doing.
You are not a boomer. You are a millennial.
Yeah. People tell me that all the time. Right, let's do this. Can everybody hear? Can everybody hear?
Not really, but it's okay.
Pardon?
And the first one, of course, is Carl Benjamin, also known as Sargon the Cat. Build him up, Carl.
There's the big boy suit.
Yeah, at least it's not an Applebee's.
He still can't do a tie up properly, though, can he?
He's got a bit of a beard neck, though, isn't he?
I wonder if he's got that 19-inch neck.
Salute, which of course we all know is a serious criminal offence, or at least it was under the Nazis anyway. It's also a serious criminal offence in Scotland now. So
I love Dankula's suit.
Go on, mate.
I said I love Dankula's suit.
Yeah, Dankula's suit's absolutely amazing. To be fair, he runs off. Well, he doesn't run off the stage, but he gets off of the stage about 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, I wonder if he's maybe not well or something.
Probably.
Also, just before you start again, quickly, I thought it was funny as well about this because what everybody's about to see, I don't think I'll be the only one, but I thought that given the way Sargon acts and the way Dankula acts, I thought it was going to be the exact opposite way around.
Yeah, because Dank has been very, very vocal of his hatred of the UK press, and he's got very good reason for it too.
Yeah, and on their YouTube content, he's much more aggressive, whereas Sargon's much more considered. So it was a pleasant one, but it was a real big surprise to me. I was like, what the fuck? I didn't see that coming.
It wasn't a surprise to me. The reason why it wasn't a surprise to me is Dankula has always said that if he was to go into politics, he would take it seriously. The things with Sargon, and I do mean this as my own opinion and what I'm forming, I don't know what he's actually doing, obviously, but from my opinion, I'm not 100% sure he's in it to win it. I think he's more interested in trying to get more internet fame and more famous in general from it, where Dankula is generally interested in the freedom of speech aspect.
That's very, very interesting theory you got there, Common Sense. I'm not saying it's wrong. You could well be right, because one thing Metica said about him, which I found interesting when they had their little spat, which was Jim is able to bring in lots of numbers when he does his live streams. I mean, when he did his one about Sargon, he was putting on about 25,000, and he brought up that Sargon, when he did his stream about Jim, deliberately did it on his main channel because he thought he would bring in more views. And he says that he knows that it pisses him off when someone like Jim, who is just basically an internet troll, can bring in more views than him. So that man does have an ego. He definitely doesn't like. I don't think he liked the Sargon the Applebee's. The whole putting out that daft tweet to Jim saying like, "Oh, Jim doesn't take politics seriously. Jim doesn't even own a suit and all that." It was fucking ridiculous. Shouldn't have done it. You know, why did you feel the need to have to, to even bring him up? Just do what you do, get on with it, and yes, okay, you've got nearly 1 million subscribers now, but try to keep those feet on the floor, because the second you start floating off is the second everybody starts thinking you're an arsehole.
Yeah. I mean, the reason why I think the way that I just explained is because if you look at Sargon's posture at this moment in time, and I can understand that he's going to be defensive anyway because he knows what's coming. He would have been prepped because of it. But if you look at the way he's standing and you look at his eyes, he's wound himself up for the press conference.
Yeah.
He's ready and willing to strike. Now, if he wants to be a politician, he needs to take that emotion back a peg, because otherwise it will be taken out of context in which it has done, which is why Count Dankula does so well in his speech. And Sargon kind of says everything that we want him to say, but because he says it the same way as Tommy Robinson does, as in off the cuff and as in an angry voice, it can be printed and shown out of context. And he himself on the internet should have known that. I just think that he's not going about it in a smart way.
I think people are past caring about that, though, is the point. But yeah, I do see what you're saying, and I've noticed that as well with people who get wound up in these situations. But anyway, yeah, go ahead if everyone's ready.
Yeah, I'm ready. Everybody,
Yeah. Fire away.
Good.
Now, I'll tell you what, chaps, let me do something. If you go to the European Parliament MPs, you will have the marvellous amount of time of one minute to make a speech. And that's an art form in itself. It's a bit like that Japanese poetry, haiku. If you can't do it in 150 words, you can't do it. So what I want you to do is each one of you to do 1 minute on why you're running as an MEP for UKIP. Carl, you go ahead.
Because you guys are severely mismanaging the country. I mean, really, I'm just here to kind of mock the legacy media. Your numbers are going down every day, and our numbers are going up, right?
See, this is what I mean by him not taking the issue seriously. Again, I love the way that he's doing it, and I love the way that he's taking it to the media. I do love that. But if this is supposed to be his launch to become an MEP, to become a member of the European Parliament, and instead of saying what he would like to do, he's attacking the media, which proves to me, at least, that he's not in it to make a difference. He's in it to boost his own ego and to boost his own notoriety, in my opinion.
Yeah, I know what you mean. There is a level of cringe to it. There's no two ways about it. But I think what he's decided he's going to do is going in attack mode straight away, which is that press will never be on my side. I'm going to get smeared. I'm going to get called everything under the sun. So the best thing I can do is attack back, be a cunt back. You know, they're being a dick to me. I'm going to be a dick to them.
I think what also might have happened, though, is a case of Batten was maybe like, you know, like I'm not massive, like I don't dislike Sargon. I'm just not a fan. Like I very occasionally watch him. I like what I watch, but I don't watch a lot of it. And so maybe I've just got a different perspective for that reason, and maybe I'm wrong for that reason. I don't know. But the thing that struck me about this was perhaps the conversation took place where Batten's like, right, guys, I'm gonna announce you, and we're just gonna be open about it, and you can say your piece, and then we'll just leave if you want, you know, like. But we're gonna have a no BS press conference, right? And I've got to wonder if, because this, I can see myself reacting this way partly of going, Jared, I don't view these people as legitimate. I don't want to give a press conference. They can fuck off. And perhaps Batten was like, well, we have to do one. So you can say that if you want, but we're doing the press conference. You know, like maybe that's the compromise that they came to, and that's why it was such a circus. I don't know.
That's actually a good theory, actually, CP, because it doesn't feel structured at all, does it? It does. I mean, obviously, Batten knows what he has to do. He's done it hundreds of times before. Press secretary lady, she's just doing her job to try and, you know, please the press and get questions answered. But these two just come along who, you know, they have their own YouTube channels. They work for themselves. They do everything their own way. So, I mean, Dank, what's called sum that up, was just turning up in his normal clothes. Because, you know, normally an MP, you'd never see them in anything but a suit. And to be honest, if it was the other way, I would put Dank in the suit. He looks better in the suit. Sargon looks like an arse. He's just got that build that doesn't look good in the suit. But he, I honestly, I would like to say that, you know, if that was me, I would have done it differently. But I don't know, because we don't know how pissed off this man is. You know, he's getting constantly smeared now. Ever since they announced he was going for it, straight away, the hit pieces started. And we all knew it was going to be the Jess Phillips tweet over and over again, because that's what it is. They just want to smear smear him so badly that the normies will think, well, I can't vote for him because he's obviously a woman hater and all that sort of shit.
It's just my thing with it is like, it's maybe like, when you go to like a party or something, it's like, oh, I'm not going because he'll be there, that arsehole I don't like. And then it's like, look, I need you to come to the party. So you can be an arsehole to him, but I need you to come to the party. So I wonder if it's like that is my take on it.
Yeah, because I mean, all you got to do now is just talk to any random person and say the name Donald Trump. Now, some people automatically say, "Oh, fucking love what he's doing." Fucking, about time somebody started talking some common sense to those arseholes in America. And then you'll get people who's like, "Oh, I hate Trump," and then it's like, "Okay, fair enough. Why do you hate him?" And that is when it starts getting funny because they don't even know why. I've got a good mate who I've known for years, and for a joke, I got him the Trump hat for Christmas because he told me back in November that he hates Trump. And all he literally did was give me all the mainstream sound bites. He's basically, he's a Russian stooge that, he won the election by fraud and all this sort of crap. And you notice all these people are forming opinions by external forces. They're not thinking, they're just relaying what they've been told. And that is actually a frightening thing, that so many people are not actually thinking for themselves. Their opinions are being formed entirely by what they've heard from other people. I mean, okay, that's how you form your opinions anyway, but I mean, they're not giving it any form of critical thinking. And that's exactly what they're trying to do with Sargon here. They know there's a lot of people out there, especially in our, the southwest part of the country. In fact, he might even be possibly what's good in my district. I'm not sure. I'll have to check. But it's the going for the ordinary person who may have no idea who he is, probably doesn't use YouTube, just watches mainstream, and to give them the impression that this bloke is effectively an old star sort of patriarchal arsehole who hates women and wants to, take away their rights and, maybe bring back slavery. Who knows? They just want to give that impression that he's backwards, effectively.
No, I mean, I do see both of your points, and I do see that Sargon's obviously going to be in the case of he knows what's coming. He's not stupid. He knows the smear job's coming. He knows the media are going to be doing what they're going to be doing, and he does what he does, and he really does go at them. And as both of you said before, it's amazing that he goes and does that. It's just with the way that he is and how his media presence is. Yes, I know that he's going to win over the fans that he already has. But if he wants to be a politician, it's not about reiterating and winning over the fans you already have. It's about convincing the fans that you don't have. And unfortunately, Mr. Count Dankula, when he does his, will win over the fans that are for freedom of speech, that do see him now from this press conference of being more of a common man that doesn't have a hidden agenda. From what I got from the press conference, in my opinion, is that Sargon seems to have a hidden agenda or a personal agenda. That's what I got from it. I didn't get it as a case of him going to make physical change. As he said at the beginning of the conference, I'm doing this to basically stick a finger up at legacy media to go against you.
Yeah, that's how I took it. And also, like what you said about their manner is actually the same as their political careers starting, I think, as well. Because, well, you said, look, at Sargon has psyched himself up, whereas Dankula is kind of trying to stay calm. And I think that's actually the same way that their political thing has gone as well, because the whole thing seems to me has it's unfolded since a few months ago when they floated the idea. It was like Sargon has been very much ramping himself up, like, right, we're going to fucking take them on and it's going to be awesome and we're going to kick their arses and I'm going to be an MEP. Whereas Dankula, it's been this sort of slow, like, oh, well, I guess I'm doing this now, fucking hell. And that's exactly how it comes across in the press conference too.
Yeah. No, I completely not agree with that assessment. What about you, Mr. Bollocks? Have you got anything else to add before we continue?
No, let's carry on, mate.
Yep. Mr. Point, anything else?
Nope.
Okay.
YouTube's getting like 30 million views a month. You're dying. And it's because, do you know your rating is on Trustpilot? It's insane. 84% one star for the BBC. BBC. 59% 1 star for ITV, and 72% 1 star for Channel 4. I don't care what you say. You are just smearmongers. Not one of you can tell me what I believe. Not one of you knows. But all of the public know because they can go to my YouTube channel, Sargon and just watch for themselves. I've been doing this for 5 years. I have nearly 1 million subscribers.
See, that's the point where me personally, I think this is more about him than doing the change. That seemed to be more of a case of, at the beginning, he made an excellent point. You lot do not know my views. That was a great point, and he should have run with it more. But then he went to, as what Mr. Medical would say, as fart sniffing and going, I've got this, I've got that, I've got this is about me. What do you guys think about that? Or is that an unfair assessment?
No, I think that's perfectly acceptable criticism. I suppose he's just using it as metric, isn't it, to say that your metrics are going down and mine are going up. Such as I'm getting closer to 1 million subscribers. I get X amount of views per month, and I did look on Trustpilot. Actually, I didn't realize how bad the BBC are actually rated. It's actually really quite funny. There's so many negative comments about them, and a lot of them were talking about the stuff they don't cover. Like there was a march or something a couple of weekends ago that they just completely ignored.
Yep.
So people were saying, "Oh, why don't you cover this?" and all that. Oh, it doesn't fit your narrative. Blah blah blah. So there is a lot of people who are starting to figure out that the great and mighty auntie is actually nothing more than a establishment stooge now. But the thing is, as we said before, Sargon has an ego, and you know what? I don't think you're going to find many YouTubers with nearly 1 million subscribers who doesn't have an ego, because you're going to constantly be getting plaudits as much as you get detractors. But I don't think it's actually possible for anybody who gets as popular as that to keep their feet firmly on the floor. I think it's just human nature to be get a bit cocky about it. You mean, I'm sure that you will always meet some people who've managed it and managed to stay completely grounded, and they'll have time for people who they used to know, and they don't ever think they're too big for anybody. But it can't be easy. That's why I give him the benefit of the doubt in that respect. So but I do get what you mean. Common sense. It does come across as a bit sort of, oh, look at me, I'm the guy with 1 million subscribers. What are you going to do about that, arseholes?
Yeah. I think that part of it is that, but like I don't want to start trying to guess what other people mind reading them and shit like that, because you can never know. And the thing is that in situations like this, people get nervous and make points very clumsily. However, I think if I was going to summarize it, especially given what Common Sense has said and what just the way that the two guys come across to me, and given that I'm a fan of Dankula and passingly watch Sargon, so there's that as well. I think that what's happened is Sargon has seen a way to move his life forward and do some good, whereas what Dankula has done is seen a way to do some good and move his life forward.
Well, you've only got to look at that shot that Common Sense is very kindly stopped on. Look at the body language of the pair of them. I mean, Sargon is very quite clearly coming across as reasonably confident, although I can sort of see there is a hint of you can tell that he's not that comfortable. I mean, even like I said, the way this tie's not done up properly and all that indicates to me a sort of like, I can't breathe with my tie done up all the way to the top, so there's obviously a level of nervousness, and maybe he's overcompensating for that.
Yeah. Well, I just, like I say, I think that they both want to do some good and they both want to move on, but the order I placed those in was deliberate. Of like, Dankula is much more a case of, right, this is going to be a public service, and hey, bonus, my life will actually move on now. I'll have a career.
Yeah,
the other way around for
he'll have a job, which is what he wanted.
Yeah, I need to move on and moving on with my career and my life, and also I'll be able to help some people out.
Do you believe him though, that he keeps saying about how he wants to just be a game developer and write and do audios on ancient history? That he doesn't want to do any of this?
Well, Sargon said that.
Yeah.
No, I don't believe that for a second.
No, I don't either. He keeps saying, "Oh, I just want to, I just want to stop doing all this and eventually and go back to, defining games." And no, I don't believe a word of that.
No, he makes too much money off of it. I think at one point he was earning 16 grand a month. At
Yeah.
one point.
I don't mean just the money. I just think temperament-wise, he seems to like what he does, and that sounds like a hollow statement to me.
To be fair, Sargon's very good at what he does. He's very good at what he does. He knows what's going to be pushing people's buttons. He knows that people want to take it back to the people that have been, I'll use his term, oppressing them. So he wants to oppress them back. So
Yeah.
I think that Sargon's very good at doing what he does. I'm just not 100% sure that he does it for the benefit of what he says he's doing it for. He's a lot like Nigel Farage in that instance. He's using the situation to benefit him rather than to benefit others. Your description of Mr. Count Dankula and Mr. Sargon of Akkad seems very apt, to the point of Mr. Count Dankula is doing it because he has to make himself better and to make other people better, where Sargon is doing it just because he feels that he needs to do it just to make himself better.
Yeah. There's definitely, in Dankula's case, he does look like he would rather be anywhere else than there at that particular moment.
Yeah.
He's doing this because it's been put to him. Would you like to run as an MEP? And as he's already explained, that if it wasn't for YouTube, he wouldn't have any income at the moment, except for maybe claiming off the dole.
Yeah.
Whereas, and as Comfort quite rightly said, if he won, he would have a job again. He would have it's not a standard job, but it would be a job. He would have a fairly good income, and so long as we were still in the EU, he would have employment.
Here's the way I'm thinking of it as well. Is like if somebody had approached Dankula and said, "Right, Dank, we need you to be an MEP, so you can finally have that platform you always wanted, but you're going to have to go on the dole or use your YouTube channel. We can't pay you." He'd still have said yes. But if with Sargon, he would have been like, "Well, dude, it's not worth my time. I'm just going to stick to YouTube and make my money." That's how I feel about it.
Point, yeah. I completely agree with that assessment.
Because Dankula has even spoken about the fact that he doesn't want to be an MEP, but he desperately wants to get into the parliament and tell these people how the fucking internet works. And that's nothing to do with, like, the way he talks about it. It's like he has this burning thing that he needs to tell these people about, and he needs the platform to do it. And like, what capacity that is in and how much he gets paid is irrelevant. It's the fact he needs to see these people face to face and say it to them.
Do you know
Sargon, not so much.
The sad thing about that is he's still under the illusion that if he explains to these MEPs what the internet's really about, they'll change their mind. No, these are people who work for big business and corporations. They know exactly what they were doing. They knew exactly what they were voting for. They were voting for whatever is going to fill their pockets with more money.
Yeah,
that's what he's up against. And I think he's...
I think he was meaning the average MEP.
Oh, I know. Cause I saw a lot of them after the vote trying to make out that that they didn't really fully understand it, and so if it all goes wrong, it's not really their fault. No, they're all fucking liars. They're all on the make. They're all assholes. They can say it's just the boomers don't understand the internet. No, it's the boomers who are deliberately there to enrich themselves.
Can I also, as well, just to give a point to Sargon as well, though, right? Dankula's way isn't working. Like, we can say that Sargon's primary reason for being here is Sargon, and his secondary reason is the public good. And we can say that he's made a spectacle of himself, and it was all a bit silly, right? And Dankula wouldn't have done that. But the thing is, if that had happened and only Dankula had been there, nobody would have reported on this like the way they have. But because Sargon made it a fucking war, loads of people who wouldn't have otherwise heard about this have heard about it and are like, "Oh, this is interesting," for better or worse. In this situation, no publicity is bad, in my opinion. And I think if they hadn't had Sargon there, and this wasn't Sargon's attitude, and he wasn't fired up, this would just have been a press conference that came and went. So it was necessary, I think.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I completely not agree. I can see both of your points of view on that. Shall we continue?
Yep.
Okay.
Just go and have a look. I'm not answering your questions. I'm not apologizing for anything. You dirty smear merchants, get them out. would like to go into the European Parliament is because I want to protect people from having their rights infringed upon in regards to freedom of speech and freedom of expression by draconian authoritarian laws. And it seems that every week I'm reading about new authoritarian laws that have been passed by the European Union. For example, I nearly got put to prison over a joke. And the primary thing that I find most amusing about that is when the overall goal as a codified British constitution models as a rights. I want the government to shrine down to its most basic use, which is to protect the rights and liberties of the citizens of the United Kingdom.
Sorry, have that.
Oh, black.
Very, very, very sorry, ladies and gentlemen, because he was right in the middle of speaking very well.
And you call me a fascist for some reason. That's literally the opposite of fascism. So I'm not sure how you have a basis for that. I'm not sure how wanting people to have rights and freedoms is far right, but I'm sure you'll find it need to make as such.
And exactly, the laughing there, that is such, to me, that is such a more powerful speech than what Sargon just did. Because it was calm, it was collected, it was to the point, and it still went to the fact of calling the press smear merchants without directly calling them it. It was a much more intelligent aspect of Count Dankula there. And even though he was going to laugh about the joke aspect, he held it back and did a thoroughly professional job, which to me suggests he's more interested in helping people than himself.
It was, I mean, again, just looking at his body language, you could tell. I mean, did you notice he was actually gripping the podium as well? That's all.
Yes.
Yeah. So he's not a natural on stage, to be fair to him, even though he's a very funny guy. He's obviously not a natural up there. But yeah, I do get your point, which is he just basically he did what Sargon was accusing the press of not doing, which was knowing what his points was. He told them, this is what I believe. I believe that the government should basically stay out of our lives and should basically only deal with very small part of society, and the people should be effectively left alone, and they shouldn't be accused of being fascist when they believe in completely the opposite of what a fascist would.
I think the other thing is how they've come to this as well. Like I think it would have been the same just from their temperament. But let's not forget that Sargon is a success story, and Dankula just about had his life destroyed. It's in tatters as it is, and he was just about in prison. And so he has got a deep, he's got skin in the game. He's got a deep amount of anger that he's going to need to keep under control. Whereas Sargon's just kind of he can take it or leave it. He's doing well. He's a success story. He's got money coming in. He's looking at expanding his operation and making it more efficient. So he's not got the same motive that Dankula has, and the same kind of Dankula's needing to be careful because he's probably, if like his lizard brain is probably like, these people ruined your life, pick up this damn lectern and chuck it at them, and he's having to hold that back, whereas Sargon's like, yeah, field day.
Yeah, it must be difficult for him because he's looking straight at the people who pretty much helped destroy his life, because everything they wrote about him was just basically lies. And I mean, even now, I mean, I saw after his conviction, I think Ricky Gervais and a couple of others, I think it was David Baddiel, they stuck up for him and basically said this was ridiculous, charging a comedian over a joke. And the Sun, of all papers, actually went with the headline Ricky Gervais. Yeah. So again, the straight away framing Dankula as actually being a Nazi, which is again, it's just, I don't know if it's lazy journalism or whether it's the whole establishment is told that this is the narrative that you will push about this person.
Well, it is. It's what you said. It's easy journalism. It's, as both Sargon and Dankula have both said, it is smear jobs. It's in a way of calling anybody that they disagree with a particular word that they know that the public associates with being bad. So if you call people racist, if you call them xenophobes, if you call them fascists or Nazis or whatever, then generally most people that do not take the time, as you said before, to read past the headlines and investigate where the actual story comes from and the context of the story, then they're just going to believe what's been peddled to them rather than doing any investigating. Just look at The Guardian and the people that read The Guardian and take that as gospel.
Well, we know where they are. They all work for the BBC.
Well, and your dad as well.
No, my old man doesn't read The Guardian. No, he sees that. He don't forget, my old man hates the upper middle class and all that.
Ah, fair enough. So he's an actual socialist.
He reads the other end of the spectrum. He reads the Mirror.
Ah, fair enough.
Yeah. He still thinks that's a working class paper.
I'm sure he does.
Like I said, is that he really doesn't believe that the Labour Party went beyond the 1970s. He probably thinks that Jim Callaghan is still fucking Labour leader.
Probably. What did you say on this, Mr. Point?
I think I've kind of just made my point already, so I'm happy to continue.
Okie dokie then. What about you, Mr. Bollocks?
Go for it.
God, he looks relieved.
I'm going to let Kirsten choose the questioners, and then we will do our best to get as many in.
Let me know who you are, who your question is for. I will read down Victoria McDonald from Charlton News. Last night, live on stage, you were asked about Joe's handling of the rape tweet. You said,
Sorry, what tweet?
The rape tweet, the questions about rape of the Labour.
No, there's no question about rape. That's a lie, and I'm not going to accept that phrase. No, I'm not accepting that phrase. I said I wouldn't either. That's not correct. It's not prompt action. It's actually just a bet. And I'm not going to be apologising for my crimes against political correctness. I hate political correctness. I'm going to answer your question.
The second part.
See, that was really good how he answered the question. But, I mean, I'm not a body language expert by any stretch of the imagination. But straight after he got the applause, he looked towards Dankula, and to me, it looked like he was looking for reassurance that he'd done something correct.
He does that a lot. You'll notice that he constantly looking for like some kind of approval. Just say
No, that's normal. That's
I mean, yeah, it is normal, but it's sort of like it's almost as if he's not sure he's gone too far.
That's what I mean. I think he's looking at Dank going, wait, shit, have I derailed this whole thing? And Dank's chuckling rather than glaring at him, so he's like, okay, everything's fine.
Yeah. I mean, I obviously, if I'd have been there, I'd been pissing myself laughing as well. But
well, let's also remember that those two are the only two people in the room that trust each other, because all the UKIP guys don't trust each other. The journalists are a bunch of snakes, and as far as Dank and Sargon are concerned, they can't be sure yet that UKIP are like, this could be a fucking setup for all they know.
Yeah.
I mean, they probably trust Gerard Batten reasonably, but like these guys have been through such a ridiculous number of circuses with so many ins and outs where people thought of these absurd machinations for the stupidest of reasons that, frankly, it's just between those two now, you know. And so he's just making I think he's worried that he's embarrassing Dankula and really doesn't give a shit about anybody else in the room, and that's it for me. I don't think he's looking for Dankula to applaud him.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say that what Sargon of Akkad did there or what Carl said there was inaccurate or shouldn't have been said. It damn right should have been said. And that was, I think, one of his best aspects of this press conference. He took that question very well. He was assertive. He explained the difference. He didn't accept the framing of the question and was able to put it into context of what happened. I think that was very, very well handled by Sargon. It's just the reason why I paused it was because, again, it wasn't for me the way that he looked at Count Dankula. It wasn't a case of him doing it because he wanted to attack the media, so to speak. I think he was doing it more of a case of, look at me, I'm the big man.
Yeah. Well, Sargon's case, he is the big man. Not quite as big as old Gerald there. That's a big belly.
I was going to say that as well, Bob. I was going to say that.
Yeah, it looks like old UKIP seems to be the party of the fatties, but at least they're fatties who believe in certain principles. But
Yeah, at least they can still move, so they're not feminists.
It's more dad bods than the fatties.
it is definitely. But I like the. If you listen to all the people who ask the media asking the questions, every single one of them sounds exactly the same in their sort of monotone voices with the same disdain in it.
Yes.
You can tell these are elitists looking down at the ordinary people with disdain, which is you realize you're ordinary plebs. You don't belong as an MEP. You don't deserve to be.
Well, you can also tell that they're the gatekeepers of information, and they're going to decide what information we get and how we're going to get it. They're not there to report. They're there.
No.
Yeah, you could tell that by the framing of the question, which is why I think Sargon did excellent in directing the framing of the question to be not impartial, but have a partial view. You had a select view before asking the question. Because she wasn't trying to say, well, your allegation of rape tweet or your suggestion of a rape tweet. No, she went straight to the point of, well, you said that you would rape her. To me, it's just the framing of the question. It just shows you the biasness of the media straight away.
Yeah,
because it wasn't trying to report on actual events. It was trying to frame it into an event that fits the narrative rather than what's actually going on. At least in my opinion, anyway. Shall I continue, or do we have anything else to add?
No.
I'm all good.
Okay.
Do continue.
I wasn't at the show. I don't any comments or jokes.
See, that's one thing you can tell though, how they're not professional MPs, which is probably the reason why a lot of people are going to vote for them, because you can see that they're trying to defend themselves, that they're trying to explain where things are going wrong and whatnot. And Jared Batten's just like, let me take this, lads, because you're going to fuck it up.
Yeah, that's one of the refreshing things about it. And also you can tell that they talk straight, which is what ordinary people do. And that's one of the most annoying things. I can remember my parents watching Question Time back in the 90s and my mum saying, why can't they bloody ever say yes or no? Why is it they get asked a question and all they do is waffle on for 5 minutes and don't answer the fucking question? And it's like, well, that's because they're professional bullshitters, mother. Yeah, that all they care about is basically peddling bullshit without actually doing anything, while at the same time lining their pockets. That's what politicians do. And this is, I think this terrifies the establishment, the whole idea of people coming in now with, morals and conviction, but also because that also terrifies the corporations, because they love establishment politicians because they can be bought. They can be easily bought off to bring in legislation and rules that favor them and helps crush competition. As I try to constantly tell people about the EU when they keep saying about, they bring in laws that protect us. I said, no, they bring in legislation that basically crushes the little, small, medium enterprises in favor of big businesses. So all they are doing is effectively taking away more choice and allowing, multinationals to get bigger and more powerful. And, when you look at, who would actually benefit from freedom of speech and expression being removed, it's them, because they don't want people to be able to question, their motives and their endless desire to make more and more money. And so the idea of having people come in who might possibly be driven by good motive and actual commitment to ordinary people and won't be easily paid off, to bring in these rules and regulations. They don't like that at all.
No. What about you, Mr. Point?
Nope, I just agree, basically.
No, I completely not. Do you agree with that assessment? I think that is the reason why the establishment is scared. I would go a little bit further. I would say that generally most people always think that you need to go to university to study some form of politics for some reason to be a politician. I've never understood the reasoning behind that, but apparently that's what you need to do.
No,
And I
you just
think
have
this
to not have a
generally
conscience.
breaks the mold for it. And I think that's amazing, where generalized people do not need to worry about going to university because they know and can see, by example, the general populace or general people or the plebeians actually going up and taking a stand. And I think there'll be more and more people that do that. And I hope there is.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Fair enough. Carrying on.
This was part of, I believe, a stand-up comedy show that you're doing. I don't watch Channel 4 anymore. I haven't been able to watch Channel 4 in years. It is so biased. It's unbelievable. Real well, and these gentlemen are free speech merchants. They do comedy acts. In fact, I did a brilliant one I saw from Mark where he ridiculed the extreme left wing of the Labour Party. I'm trying to get him to a conference. If they make jokes as part of their act, I'm not condoning any jokes or ill-considered remarks, but this is what they are. And as I said to you, do you realise how few people now watch Channel 4 because you are an endless stream of left-wing politically correct propaganda?
Well said. I don't think we need to stop on that one. So I think that's well said.
Excellent.
Is that all you can think about? We've come here to talk about the European elections. All you can do is
Sit down, half-wits.
Yeah, that's the person who's actually holding the camera. He makes some good comments, to be fair, bless him. He does make some good comments.
Oh, I must have missed that first time. That's a cracker, that is.
To be fair, that's another thing with Mr. Benjamin that kind of annoyed me about the conference. We understood his political point at the beginning where he told BBC what they were and that before. I know that he's there not to give them respect, but he should be respectful enough to let them ask the question first before responding. Actually do it properly rather than try and take control of it and make it his show.
Yeah. I think
that's why I'm in two minds about it, because you say that, and like the common sense part of me is like, partly because the common sense has said it, but the common sense part of me is like, yeah, exactly. But then the other part of me is like, but hang on, like the sort of more analytical part of me is like, but why? That infers that they are worthy of respect, which they are not. So why pretend?
No, it wasn't a case that I think that they are worthy of the respect. It's the fact that it can be span into a way where, oh, he's such openness for free speech that he won't let us speak. The thing is, you have to look at it how it can be spun rather than how it looks to you.
It's going to be spun. It's going to be and has been spun anyway. Like they've already written the report before they even entered the room, in all likelihood. So
yeah.
I think that's what I mean. We need to get out of this way of thinking, where we're worried about public image, because those days are over. And I think that's what this press conference was about for me, and that's why I shared it with you. It's like,
yeah, it's a very blurry.
Press releases. Well, it's not over. It's potentially over. But press releases and your sort of your Alistair Campbell spin doctory types, that can, if this works, that can all fuck off.
Yeah, the whole New Labour style of a substance, isn't it?
But I would add that I can see your point, because the way I tend to speak to people, and that's why if I tell somebody to fuck off or get annoyed at somebody or like properly hostile towards somebody, it means something, because I tend to have in my head, I've always tried to speak to the person as if they're going to have power over me in the future, if that makes sense. Like when you read about like in a novel where like the hero is a dick to somebody and then they're actually quite high up as a baddie, and then they're like, oh shit, I shouldn't have been such a dick to him. I could have maybe talked my way out of this. I've always had that kind of mentality. So it's like, I always try and speak to people as if I've got a degree of respect for them, just even if I don't, because
it's self-preservation.
Yeah, but more a case of it's just a good ethic to have. Like if I find you just get better.
Self-preservation is always a good ethic to have, regardless of how
Well, yeah.
people perceive it.
But you know what I mean. So it also lends much more credence. Like, so if I fly off the handle at somebody, or I'm like a dick to somebody, everybody that knows me is like, oh, this is serious, because I always behave towards people as if. I mean, I've not really outright stated it this way before, but that's kind of what I do. It's like, if I'm talking to the person as if they're going to have power over me in the future, and if I'm still going to call them an asshole with that in the back of my mind, I really think they're an asshole. So with that said, I can see your point of view of I would probably stand there and be like, I'd be more Dankula than Sargon, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say that he shouldn't have said that. I was just saying that he should have waited until the question is finished, because it was obviously directed towards him. Because then he could have just said exactly what he said and left that as his answer.
I think he's just got to the point. He's now running on a gambit, isn't he? Which is that I'm going to be this very sort of forthright, angry sort of man who's going to tell it to you straight, and I'm not going to take any of the press's bullshit, and I'm going to be direct, and regardless of how that comes across, we'll find out shortly whether or not it's actually going to work or not. But it depends, because maybe Sargon's decided that one of the reasons that people have been turned off from politics is because, as Trump proved, is that a full-on alpha male is still what people really want in charge, because they know that they will have the strength and forthness to actually get things done. Because the thing is, when you get this, just the sniveling snakes, like your Blairites and those sort of ilk, who just are just there to smile and spew a load of sound bites, people have grown tired of that. That's exactly what the New Labour era brought in, and then was continued with the fucking current Tory party. And people are looking.
This isn't like an entirely new thing either. If you look at people like properly anciently old school guys like Dennis Skinner, this is how he behaves. Like,
yeah, literally will say exactly what he thinks.
Actually, he made an equally excellent, in fact, no, an even better joke than Sargon, but in a different way. You know how, like, I wouldn't even rape you. I remember probably my favorite moment in the House of Commons ever. The Dennis Skinner, he's like saying, he's pointing at the Tory benches, and he's just like, or it was the coalition. He's like, half of this house are liars, and then the speaker stands up and says, "You can't make accusations like that. Please retract your statement." And he stands up and says, "Sorry, Mr. Speaker, half of this house are not liars."
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, wow, very intelligent, very well done.
Yeah.
I do not have much time left, Miss Gent. So should we continue, or do we have anything that we need to add to this particular point?
No, keep going.
Okie dokie.
All you want to talk about, our country's future is on the line. And the vast mass of people out there couldn't care less.
Sit down, you half-wit.
In your defence, I can ask you whether you agree with the candidate's local branch in Swindon that he should be deselected. Oh, Martin Costello, backstab.
There are people in UKIP that want to deselect me. It's called politics. What happens in every party? If I could keep 100% of everybody happy in my party, then I would be the first politician in the history of the world that's ever managed to do it. Whoever you select as a candidate, some people are going to object and some people are going to walk away. That's the nature of the business.
Thank you very much. Next question.
I think that was a very, very well answered question.
It was very good.
Yeah, that's batting all over though, like cutting through the pretense. It's like, are you seriously going to pretend to me that this isn't happening constantly across time forever? Like, get a fucking grip, but put it far more delicately than I just put it, and that's what I really like about it.
Yeah, I mean, how many Republicans didn't want Trump? The never Trumpers. and but didn't stop him becoming the Republican nominee and the Republican president.
Yep.
So, like this, it doesn't matter. There will always be people who will want to take you down. As soon as you rise to the top, the second you become leader, somebody is plotting to take you down and take your place.
Yep. No, completely and utterly agree.
And also always bringing it back to the root issue of, like, is Britain a country? Because if you think Britain's a country, then now we need to be doing shit. This is important. So, but yeah, that's I'm done. If you want to move on.
Yeah, no worries.
You 3 times you asked me the same question on Sky News. No, you did 3 times.
As Mr. Bullock said, I do love the person behind the camera. You're supposed to ask questions about the subject. You know, European elections, the Brexit, and, you know, that sort of stuff.
I was legit, like, watching the video, and I was legit like, is that Jensen quit?
If it is, I want him as a candidate next time.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
King
No,
quit.
I agree.
King
I
quit.
completely agree.
Yeah.
I do agree. Oh, should we continue, or do we have anything else to add?
Oh, carry on, mate.
Asked me 3 times, I answered you, which was that I don't condone a joke or a remark made by somebody 3 years ago on Twitter. Now, if you held everybody to account for every remark they ever made in their life, which was stupid, unthought out, uncondonable, there wouldn't be any journalists in this room, would there?
That was an amazing answer. Absolutely amazing answer. Basically, literally pointing out that everybody has done something stupid, and if we were to hold everybody to the account that you're trying to hold Sargon to, then we'd all have no jobs.
Well, the main difference is once upon a time, the ordinary person wouldn't have this against them because we didn't have an endless digital trail of everything we've ever done.
Yeah, and as we know, the journalists are the worst for it. Hashtag Panadrama.
Yeah.
So any blue check marks, and just watch Blue Checkmark Watch.
And it's also like when people don't, the general public know, or some of them know, that people don't have like time travel powers and know that they want to be a politician forever, at which point in their life they want to do it and on what issues they plan to stand, right? So people are fairly aware that before you become a politician, you'll probably have said some stuff that might even actually oppose what you're going to stand for, right? But the point is that you've taken up the office and now you're going to represent the office. And so long as you do that well, it's like getting a new job. Like, say I went to work for fucking Pepsi, right? And they'd be like, oh, you just did a whole comic taking the piss out of us, though. It's like, yeah, but I'm going to represent your company well now that I work for it. And I'm going to do well. And I'm going to be a professional, and that's all they would want from me. And then I would leave, and I would have my own opinions again. I'd be allowed. So long as you're in the office, you need to do that. But before and after, you can do what the fuck you like, and people know that. And the journalists are trying to make everybody pretend that you have to be squeaky clean your whole life and somehow know 10 years in advance what you're going to be doing.
Somehow, yes.
Yeah.
Anything else to add, or shall I continue? Because I don't have much time left.
Carry on, mate.
Is she really just saying you didn't answer my question, even though he's answered it and answered it 3 times?
But she is a journalist, so she probably just doesn't understand the answer.
It's if they don't get the answer they want, they'll keep spewing that one.
The Acosta route.
Yeah, he has effectively answered the question, but not in the way she wants it. She basically wants him to say, "You're right. The man standing next to me is a bigot and a sexist. We will remove him from the building immediately."
Or the man sat next to me is a bigot and a racist, and yes, by association, that makes me a bigot and a racist, and I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I see your point and agree with you. Mr. Point, do you have anything to add?
Nope, carry on.
Okie dokie. Mr. Quinn has spoken up again.
You know, I'm starting to think now that does sound suspiciously like him as well. That's the reason he keeps claiming he's got a sore throat at the minute. He's very busy.
Shouting a lot.
Yes, indeed.
Cunning.
The accountant suggested earlier that if I would like to hold his candidate to account, I would sign up for your
As someone about the EU elections.
Well said, Quinn.
Why do you think it's acceptable to say on Twitter that you even rate a female Labour?
There is a difference in them in the way she's treated. Unlike the establishment, unlike our judges, literally say if you were a man, I would send you to jail. I think we should treat women the same as men. And that means if a woman is being a giant bitch and laughing at male suicide, I'm going to be a giant dick back to the woman. Any questions?
I have to say, I am completely and utterly with Sargon on that point. And I don't agree with him on much anymore or nowadays, but I agree with him on what he just said.
I rewatched that 3 times, not to rehear what Sargon had to say, but just to watch Drancula's face the other 2 times because it's just too good.
It was definitely, you could not see him. Well, you don't see many candidates for any political positions normally calling another member of the establishment a bitch. But to be fair to him, it's a perfectly accurate assessment of Jess Phillips. She is a complete and total and utter bitch. Yep. She is a self-centered, arrogant, lazy, and basically she claims that she's a socialist, but she isn't. She's just somebody who well, then again, I suppose she just wants something for nothing. She wants to be an MP. She wants to be an MP, but make no effort into actually doing the job. Because apparently, that would be patriarchy. She's basically, she's a feminist because it's the easiest way of advancing her career effectively.
Yep.
Yeah, and the constant double standards, because obviously female politicians call men pigs and dogs all the time. So,
yeah. So it's anybody who's willing to actually put a mirror up to these arseholes and show them the double standards. And it's sickening that because she's now a member of the establishment, she can say and do whatever she wants. And the establishment will leave her alone, or at least make excuses for her.
Do you mean somebody like Anna Soubry getting a man arrested for calling somebody a Nazi?
What, calling
somebody, a member of parliament, calling other members of parliament a Nazi and getting away with it?
Yeah. I'm actually surprised that David Lammy hasn't been arrested on hate crime legislation. With him,
surprising.
Yeah, you can't stand trial if your IQ is below 30. I think.
Well, I'm fucked then. By the way, if anybody wanted to watch this video back again at this point, I suggest that you watch the lady that is right next to Sargon with the white hair, with the glasses on her head, and the gentleman directly behind Mr. Bat on their faces. Because though Dankula's face is amazing, the oldish white lady that is literally nodding and agreeing until he calls Jess Phillip a bitch, and then kind of goes, "Oh fuck," is kind of priceless.
It is sort of like that part of the establishment that just aren't used to hearing what the ordinary everyday man in the street actually will say and think. And this is the thing, the establishment, I mean, it was accelerated under Blair in his sort of belief that he'd eradicated the working class, that they didn't exist. He thought by sending everybody to university, you automatically became progressive and middle class. No, that didn't work. We still exist. We always will exist. And so these people are now completely and utterly detached from what every normal, because the working class is still the vast majority of the country. You've got the middle class, but they're still in something like, I don't know, about 20% of the population. And then it gets smaller as the income brackets increase. And they really don't get that there are ordinary people that have these opinions and, like politically incorrect humor and politically erect opinions. They didn't just politically erect. Yeah, I like that. I'm going to start using that.
Not just the standard MP scandal.
Yeah, politically erect opinions, and they can't fathom that that's how people still think. It's no real different than maybe about 30 or 40 years ago. People still have opinions and thoughts that that haven't really changed. They were just driven underground because the mainstream wouldn't allow people to express them anymore.
Mm-hmm. No, completely and utterly agree with your assessment there, especially with the political erect.
Oh, yes. Feel free to have a political erection anytime, Common Sense.
I am.
On camera, please.
No, not for you. Not now. Do you have anything to add, Mr. Point?
No.
Okay, I will continue. I probably only got about another 5 minutes, to be fair. Then I'm going to have to start closing everything down. So if anybody wanted to watch the video in itself, and not my video, I meant this video, the press conference, it is linked down below in the description box. So please take your time to watch it. It is quite good. It is quite interesting. But we'll probably only watch it up to the point where Jared Batten starts talking about Tommy Robinson. And then after that, we'll probably get off. So, continuing onwards, gang ho.
Something revolutionary here now. I want to know if any journalists have got any questions about the European elections.
Yes, let's please try and keep it to European elections. Yes, sir.
I'm just going to say something BBC News. This is absolutely about the European elections. You talk directly, Joe, could you, to a passionate Leave voter, looks upon an event like this and says, and you were dismissive of a poll, you refer to the Times today, talking about dodgy made-up polls.
Yeah.
There is a party, an outfit, Brexit wanted, doing very well in the polls, and I think folks might look and think, hang on a minute, it looks like UKIP is more important to you delivering Brexit because you guys could throw your lot in, do the lot, and you would be a bigger entity. Is that not?
Let me answer. That's a serious question, and let me answer it. You explained to me how two parties do the same thing at the same time.
I know he's single at this minute in time, but that was very, very interesting.
What's that?
I don't know if anybody else noticed it.
Hang on, which
Did
one?
anybody else notice what I noticed?
Which were who's single? What, Batten?
No, Sargon.
I thought you.
Did anybody else notice what I noticed?
No.
Or should I explain what I noticed?
Go on, fire away.
Vicky in the centre, how she was talking to Sargon, and then how she had a massive smile on her face as she does now at this point in time after talking to him. Seemed very interesting. I'm not trying to say that there was anything going on. I'm just trying to say very interesting. Where is it? It's about here. So I'll go back and just now that we've pointed it out.
Delivering Brexit because you guys could throw your lot in, do the lot, and you would be a bigger entity. Is that not?
Let me answer. That's a serious question, and let me answer it. You explained to me how two parties do the same thing at the same time.
She was rubbing the platform quite ferociously there, wasn't she?
She looked like she wanted something, didn't she? She definitely looked like she wanted something. Though I suppose I'm a misogynist, so I should probably continue.
I would love it if, like, you guys are all like, "Oh, I wonder if she fancies Sargon," and like, if we could get the audio of it, it's just like, "Oh my god, that guy has the biggest fucking nose I've ever seen."
Or probably more sensibly, it's probably going, where is Count Dankula gone? I can't see him anymore.
Yeah. She
And Sargon has just said, he's off for a wank, and then that's led to her current face.
I get it. I see. Yeah, she's probably.
I'm not sure if that's uncomfortability or if that's interesting.
He's basically going to make some Scottish moisturizer, help keep that skin nice and fresh.
Well, we all need some cream.
I mean, she has a sort of that kind of look on her face when she thinks she's actually gonna get some, but knows that the bloke is probably knobbing her sister instead. But she's still giving herself a sort of level of optimism that it might still happen.
Yeah, she definitely has that face.
Mm.
Mr. Point, anything to add?
I simply cannot stand the level of misogyny on this stream, and that you should move on.
I know.
We will move on.
Sorry, we're getting very toxic. We've got to get rid of this toxicity.
Well, that's the reason why we need Mr. Meacham's hand cream.
I think that is extremely toxic. It's full of far right toxicity.
In that case, then I should move on.
It was a party that has been around now since 1993. We grew out of the old cathedrals, so we've been around since 1992. We have a clear policy, no equivocations, everybody knows what it means. We've organised over the years, we've got all of these people up and down the country, branches, candidates, and we run on a platform of leaving the European Union. Somebody decides to leave UKIP and set up another party. Well, I'm trying to answer your question about why we can't work together. Somebody sets up another party just in a very short period of time to fight the same elections. Are people out there expecting me to say, oh, no, we shouldn't do this anymore. We should stand aside for somebody that's just stepped in and wants to do it at the last minute? And you cannot work with people on that basis because, first of all, there are 12 regions in the country with 73 candidates in each region. Are you saying to me that we should stand down in some regions or all of the regions or half the regions? Nigel Farage has never spoken to me in the last 12 months. He could have come up to me any time in the Strasbourg coffee bar and said, Gerard, I'm thinking of doing this. What do you think? He has never contacted me to ask me, would I do something or not do something? So if you expect me to march my army into battle and then stand it down because somebody, which might be an army, which might be fighting on a similar policy, marches over the hill, then you can forget it. I'm taking my army into this battle to win, and we stand for a real, unencumbered, no ifs, no buts exit from the European Union. What's the Brexit Party's policy? Does anybody know? Leave means leave. Okay, how are we going to do it? Well, we're not going to tell you that because we don't really know. I know how it's going to be done. I could stand up anywhere and give you a talk on how you would leave the European Union if you were going to do it. And what is this party? It is one man. It has no constitution that I know of that's published. I might be wrong on that because they'll get one out. It has no members. It has subscribers who give money. We have members with a democratic vote inside the party. It has no branch structure, and it has not running any candidates in this local election. And as far as I know, at the moment, it doesn't have any plans to run in domestic elections. All the things that we do. And you expect me, or you're asking, should a Leave voter expect me to say, oh dear, we mustn't do this anymore, we've got to give way to somebody else? Well, no, we're not. Politics is a market, as I said. People have a choice who they're going to vote for. There's 5 weeks of this campaign. They can look at what we're saying, they can look at what we're proposing that the government should do, or they can vote for a party which is nothing more than a vehicle to put one man in the limelight and a few cronies back onto the Euro gravy train. And if you want me to sum it up in one word, look at the colours that they've chosen. Light blue. It is Tory light. Everybody that's defected to that party or gone to that party is a Tory who couldn't make it in the Tory party. And one of the things that the problems have been with UKIP over the years, which I've had to live with, we have been a refugee camp for exiled Tories. Well, a lot of them have left. Yes, I want former Tories. Yes, I want former Labour. Yes, I want all the people who've never bothered to join a political party but now might. And I want to build a force that goes past these European elections. They're just incidental to what we really want to do, which is to have a new political force in the UK, reform the voting system, make it possible for other people to get elected, whoever they are, whether they be Green or Liberal Democrat or whatever. Let's have a proper voting system where we can actually put our case to the British people and get voted on our merits. But if you think I'm standing aside for somebody on this personal ego trip, then I'm afraid the voters can forget it. They've got to make a choice between a real party or a phony party.
And I think that's an absolutely amazing point to actually be able to end on. But first of all, let's just have our final little bit of views about that, because I think there's a very interesting point of view that Mr. Batten's got there. It's very similar to my own, seems very similar to Mr. Comperpoint's, and very similar to Bollocks, where we're not 100% sure on what the Brexit Party is supposed to be doing, but we can all admit that it seems to be very Tory.
Yeah. Do you also know that Rees Moggs' his sister with the unpronounceable first name was one of the candidates?
Indeed.
Yeah. Can you actually pronounce it?
No, I cannot. Zananita or something, or Zanazara?
I started calling it Azerbaijan.
That's a country.
I know, but it's about as close as I was going to get to getting it right.
I would just like to make a couple of quick points, and it will be quick because it's mainly just callbacks. But it's like you can see how, you know, what I was saying at the start, where it's just like the three guys actually operate the same way, but in different temperaments. So it's just like, no BS. We're going to take you head on. We're going to essentially give you a dressing down, and we're going to state actual facts. But they have three completely different ways of going about it. Because Gerard Batten's doing exactly the same thing as Sargon's doing it, but he's doing it in a completely different way. The other thing is, like, he's said exactly what the situation is with Farage, but he's not qualified the statement. He's saying, look, here's what's happened. I don't know what to make of it yet, but here's the situation, which I thought was good because he's not burnt that bridge now. And like that also kind of goes back to what I was saying about, like, Farage wanted to have, like, his revolution involved going back to where we started, but Gerard Batten and all the new UKIP people who have, since the big clear out they had, and people like that he's got on stage with them, are like, no, you've changed things and we can't go back to that old paradigm or it will just lead to the same mistakes. And so that's my take on the whole thing.
No, fair enough. I think that's a very sensible take on it. I think we're all very, very similar on that one. But I'm not going to put words into Mr. Bollocks' mouth, so I'm going to put my nuts in instead.
I've been waiting all evening, darling.
No, darling.
Yeah, no, I agree with Crump on that one. Yeah, it's definitely. I don't know really what Farage's intention is, and the whole way of him leaving UKIP and all that was very suspect. In that it was, what can I use? Oh, I can use Robinson. That's my excuse. It's the party's filthy and racist now, even though, like you said, he's been associated with people who are quite not necessarily friends, but have associated with Tommy in the past and are kind of supportive of him. So it's, I do think that he.
A couple of ex-BNP members, Mr. Farage. Not that I'm trying to tarnish him, but I'm just saying in general.
No, he probably has been. It's just, I think it's the real main reason for him creating this whole new party was because he knew, especially after Bolton got ousted, and that probably happened sooner than he anticipated. He knew that he could not become the head cheese of UKIP again when the time came. That had basically been taken away from him. So he kind of, if he wanted to have what he had before, which was UKIP was centered around him, he'd have to start again from scratch. And also, I think Batten has come along and actually been a damn sight more successful than he anticipated. I'm sure he must have thought that UKIP would have collapsed by now. And finding out how in debt they actually were, and the fact that Batten managed to save them from insolvency was very impressive. So because to be fair, nobody knew who anybody else really was in UKIP until Farage left. I mean, nobody knew about poor Nuttall. Nobody certainly had heard of Bolton before he became leader. There was it Suzanne Evans or something like that, who was the first one to be elected after Farage left, and she lasted 2 weeks before she quit because she couldn't cope.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, her Evans and is it O'Brien were trying to take over the party, and Nuttall was kind of just a stooge for Farage, and Farage was. The thing is that everything that I've heard coming out of UKIP that damaged its reputation for me fits with what Batten's just said about the way Farage wants to run the Brexit party. And so that's put a lot of things in context for me, and I'm like, oh, that makes a shit ton of sense now. And we know that, like you say, cleared up the money situation. They've got rid of all the traitors that were just from other parties and basically try to torpedo UKIP from inside. And also, the other thing is, like, I've an appreciation for guys like that who are a bit quieter and not as bombastic as other people, but they have really good organizational skills, because to be able to actually organize the mess that was UKIP into a functioning party that's now going to stand, that's pretty impressive. And not just that, but now move it onto a new ground that it's never been on before as well. So, good for him. I'm really quite impressed by the guy.
No, I completely agree. I am going to have to end the stream very, very shortly. So final words from both of you. If Mr. Point, you would like to go first, and then I will end. If you
Yeah.
have any final words to obviously say, apart from obviously shilling your channel, which you're more than welcome to do.
Oh yeah, please. If you've enjoyed my outbursts and ridiculous, over-the-top bluster on here, then you'll probably enjoy the same thing on my channel. I don't really talk about politics much on there, but I do talk about I talk about comics and films, and then I talk about like the sort of the infestation of political correctness into those things as well, but it's not the focus of the whole channel. It's not like a drama channel. And then final word is just, well, cheers for having me on, Common Sense. It's been good to speak to you again, Bollocks. It's been a while, and I think I've expressed myself pretty much to death on the stream so far, so I'm kind of happy with what I've said, and just thanks everybody, and I guess I'm very excited to see where UKIP's going, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens, and that's it. Thank you.
No worries. After you, Mr. Bollocks.
Yeah, I'm sort of in the same mind as Crumple Point there, which is I'm very curious about where this is going. I mean, in reality, this shouldn't even be happening because we should now be out of the EU as originally planned, but because our establishment deliberately have done everything in their power to basically delay, well, extend and pretend, as it's better known. It looks like we're going to have these EU elections. Fuck knows whether or not Brexit will actually happen in October or not. I suspect not. So all I can really do is just watch the shit show unfold and just hope really that the British people do eventually get out of their comfort zone, except that there's only one way we're going to change anything, and get on the streets and start causing mayhem, because I can't see voting at the ballot boxes is going to change anything now, because we've had 40 or possibly even 50 years now of people just voting for two parties that's just basically brought us to the same place. And it's never a great thing to have to condone violence and rioting, but unfortunately, I think we're running out of options now. I mean, wasn't it JFK who said that those who make peaceful resolution impossible make violent revolution inevitable? And that is pretty much what we're getting close to now. If they do rain on Brexit, then as far as I'm concerned, democracy in the UK is dead. And there's only one way to reclaim it then, I'm afraid. So interesting times. I think the 2020s are going to be very, very, very interesting. So it's just a shame that YouTube has been a massive digital twat and not promoting people like Common Sense and other small channels who talk about what's going on, because there's lots of people out there who'd love to hear opinions such as these. It's just they don't get to hear it, because I don't know if it's because YouTube now thinks of itself as mainstream and doesn't want to get involved in anything controversial or whatever. But I would like to see people like Common Sense. I'd like to see people like Crumple Point. I'd like to see all these people with these varying different opinions get a bit more of an audience, so they can spread their opinions and words, and more people can hear it, and more people can maybe challenge their own biases, maybe even challenge ours, because even though we like to think of ourselves as open-minded and liberal-minded, we naturally have our own opinions, and we are quite protective of it. But maybe we do get it wrong sometimes. Some people in the chat call us twats or pricks, but that's mainly for not letting them into the stream. But it's nice to be challenged sometimes. So, but the main crux of that is YouTube, get your act together and let people like Common Sense get the level of success he deserves, because he's a very nice chap and has an enormous penis as well, so that counts for a lot. But anyway, thanks everyone for listening for however long it's been tonight. It's been fun. Common Sense and we don't stream as much as we used to, but it's still an honor when he brings me on, because he's a very good, very nice chap, and you should all love him, and you should all subscribe to him and send him lots of donations as well, and basically just give him love. So that's all for me, and thanks Crumple Point. Subscribe to his channel as well. Don't bother with mine, because I'm not bothering with it at the moment. I've got other things to do in my life. Might return to it eventually, but don't know when.
And he's about 2,000 subscribers above the rest of us.
I know that's the typically ironic thing, isn't it? I had an influx, and they, all got a little bit too keen, and I didn't realize how difficult making your own channel is, especially when you don't talk about politics and you just want to be funny. It does take a lot of time and effort, and unfortunately, I don't have a lot of time, and my effort is pretty poor. But anyway, thank you very much.
Your effort's poor, mate. I wouldn't say your effort's poor. Your effort takes you 6 months to make a fucking video.
Well, that's because, mate, as you well know, and I get complaints about this all the time from the other half, I'm too much of a perfectionist. I like things to be just so. I can't just put up something and think that's a half-assed job. But that's just me. That's my own fault, and I'm an idiot for it. But there you go.
Right. Well, I'm not going to give a final word because Magic Bollocks has managed to pontificate a load of shit to make sure that he decides to keep the stream for going for a long time. And don't think I didn't notice you bastard. But with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe as much as possible. But bye for now. Take care. See you all again real soon.